Chapter 419. Xiao Chen was very interested in the armies of the Moonless Empire and the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Although he had been to the Mountain Suppressing Army's camp a few times, he had no idea how strong the Mountain Suppressing Army was. Xiao Chen did not hesitate and left the Mountain Suppressing City on the same day. However, Xiao Chen was accompanied by Zhang Qi and Gu Xiu. Without telling Zhao Feng, the three of them rushed to the front line. The distance was not far. In just 15 minutes, Xiao Chen arrived at the Mountain Suppressing Army's frontline camp. This time, the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army of 400,000 was advancing in 4 different directions. It was obvious that they wanted to attack the 4 border cities of the Moonless Empire at the same time. The Mountain Suppressing Army was naturally one of the 4 armies of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Facing such an army, Zhao Feng also sent out 100,000 Mountain Suppressing Army soldiers. When Xiao Chen arrived, the 2 armies had already been fighting for 2 days. Although there were casualties on both sides, the overall number was not too high. After all, they were not fighting to the death. They were just probing each other's strength. There was basically no winner or loser in this kind of battle. Facing Xiao Chen's sudden arrival, Zhao Tuo was in fear and trepidation. This time, Zhao Feng sent Zhao Tuo as the main general to fight the Heavenly Wolf Army. Zhao Tuo, who was originally in the commander's tent, heard that Xiao Chen had arrived at the front line and immediately ran out to greet him. Seeing Xiao Chen in the camp, Zhao hurried forward and bowed respectfully. "General Zhao Tuo greets young master. General Zhao, you have worked hard. There is no need to pay attention to me. I am only here to watch the show. When facing the enemy, General Zhao can command as you like," Xiao Chen said to Zhao Tuo with a faint smile. Xiao Chen had only come because he was curious. Therefore, he had no interest in commanding the enemy. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Zhao Tuo secretly let out a sigh of relief. Perhaps it was because of the assassination last time. Facing Xiao Chen, Zhao Tuo felt a lot of pressure. It was even greater than facing Chu Wuming. After this period of interaction, Zhao Tuo and Zhao Feng completely understood that compared to Chu Wuming, Xiao Chen was the most terrifying. Therefore, Zhao Tuo did not dare to be careless in front of Xiao Chen. After chatting with Zhao Tuo, Xiao Chen, Zhang Qi, and Gu Xiu went to the tent prepared by Zhao Tuo to rest. While the 3 of them were chatting idly, Zhao Tuo had gathered all the generals in the commander's tent. Xiao Chen had clearly said that he was here to watch the show, so Zhao Tuo naturally had to show off his skills to Xiao Chen. Looking at the generals below, Zhao Tuo said in a deep voice, "Young master has come personally to see the strength of our mountain-suppressing army. I have decided to attack the Sky Wolf army immediately. Who is willing to be the vanguard?" Zhao Tuo wanted to show off in front of Xiao Chen. Hearing this, the generals all expressed their willingness. After some discussion, Zhao Tuo finally chose the vanguard. He would lead 10,000 soldiers and attack the Sky Wolf army immediately. After choosing the vanguard general, the sound of war drums could be heard in the camp. Xiao Chen and the other 2 looked at each other when they heard the war drums. Then Gu Xiu said with a smile, "Zhao Tuo is smart. This Zhao Tuo is really a smart person. Young master has only been here for less than an hour and he has already launched an attack. Obviously, he wants to show off in front of young master." Xiao Chen and the other 2 naturally knew what Zhao Tuo was thinking when he launched the attack so eagerly. Hearing Gu Xiu's words, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "If that's the case, let's go take a look too. We must not disappoint General Zhao Tuo." In order to show off in front of Xiao Chen, Zhao Tuo launched the attack first. Following the 10,000 mountain-suppressing army as the vanguard, the Sky Wolf army also responded. Both sides were only vanguards and there were less than 20,000 soldiers in total. At the same time, the generals leading the vanguard were all in the Sky Realm. They went all the way to the place where the vanguard armies of both sides were facing each other. Xiao Chen and the other 2 stood in the air. At the same time, the vanguard armies of both sides were ready for battle. The two vanguard generals also rode out. The two generals were both mounted on dragon horses, and when they looked at the vanguard general of the Celestial Wolf Empire, Xiao Chen froze and blurted out involuntarily, "Mu Feng." He had only intended to watch the show, but who would have thought that he would meet Mu Feng here? Moreover, Mu Feng had become a general of the Heavenly Wolf Empire? Although he was only a general of the lowest rank, but Mu Feng was shocked. However, he didn't notice Xiao Chen and the other two standing in the air. At this moment, Mu Feng, who was riding on a dragon horse and wearing a silver-white armor, looked at the mountain-suppressing army general in disdain, and shouted coldly, "You mountain-suppressing army really don't know what's good for you. How dare you provoke me?" Mu Feng, don't try to show off. If you have the ability, come and fight me for 300 rounds. Hearing Mu Feng's words, the mountain-suppressing army general didn't back down and shouted coldly, "Haha, 300 rounds? If you want to die, your grandpa Mu will fulfill your wish." Mu Feng laughed and took the initiative to attack. Ever since they arrived at the Heavenly River continent, Mu Feng and a group of cultivators from the Heavenly Qin continent were teleported to the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Because there was a Tao King realm cultivator among them, they naturally formed a group to train in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. In the beginning, things went quite smoothly and everyone made great progress. However, later on, because they accidentally offended one of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's powerful clans, they were hunted down and captured. A total of 23 Tianqian continent cultivators were captured by the powerful clan. In order to save everyone's lives, the Tao King expert had no choice but to join the Sky Wolf Empire's army. This way, the Heavenly Qin continent cultivators' lives were saved. Serving in the Sky Wolf Empire's army, Mu Feng relied on his outstanding combat strength to become a general of the lowest rank step by step. Looking at the two people fighting fiercely below, Xiao Chen's eyes flickered with a deep smile. He turned to Zhang Qi and said, "Uncle Zhang, how about we find an opportunity to take Mu Feng away later?" Since he had met Mu Feng here, Xiao Chen also intended to take him back to the Moonless Empire. After all, although Mu Feng was already a small general, he obviously did not have a good life in the Sky Wolf Empire. Therefore, Xiao Chen naturally could not leave him behind. The generals of the two sides fought for a long time. While Mu Feng and Xiao Chen were fighting fiercely, Zhang Qi, who had received Xiao Chen's order, decisively made her move. She moved and instantly appeared in front of Mu Feng. Before Mu Feng could react, Zhang Qi grabbed Mu Feng's armor and disappeared with him. As a super expert in the Tao Master realm, it was naturally very easy for Zhang Qi to take away Mu Feng, a little celestial realm cultivator. From Zhang Qi's attack to her departure, the whole process happened in the blink of an eye. No one saw clearly that Mu Feng had disappeared, and no one knew who took him away. Please collect, monthly vote recommend. Chapter 420. Mu Feng, who was still in the middle of a fierce battle, was taken away in the blink of an eye. Because it was Zhang Qi who took action, no one could see who it was. They only saw a black shadow flash by and Mu Feng disappeared. Zhang Qi carried him in her hand like a chick. After succeeding, Xiao Chen and the other two were too lazy to continue watching the battle and left the battlefield with Mu Feng. Along the way, because Mu Feng didn't know who took him away, he struggled and shouted angrily, "Put me down! Do you know who I am? I'm a captain of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. If you capture me, the Heavenly Wolf Empire won't let you go." Mu Feng shouted angrily. Facing Mu Feng's angry shout, Xiao Chen was secretly amused. Mu Feng was still the same as before, so innocent and cute. Back in the Five Elements Tao Palace, Mu Feng was also like this. In the end, he rushed into the nocturnal tribe alone and was almost killed. Xiao Chen and the other two suppressed their laughter and brought Mu Feng to a small mountain peak not far away. Zhang Qi casually threw Mu Feng to the side. Even now, Mu Feng was still cursing and swearing. "Damn it, do you know who I am? How dare you? While cursing, Mu Feng looked at Xiao Chen and the other two. When he saw Xiao Chen, Mu Feng's voice came to an abrupt halt and the anger on his face instantly froze. He stared at Xiao Chen with a dull expression. Seeing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Go on, you're a captain of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. So what?" Mu Feng originally thought that it was the people of the Moonless Empire who captured him, but who would have thought that it was Xiao Chen? After being stunned for a while, Mu Feng smiled awkwardly and said, "Big brother Xiao Chen, I didn't know it was you." He directly changed the way he addressed Mu Feng. Hearing this, Xiao Chen deliberately teased, "It's only been a while since we last met, but your flattery skills have improved rapidly." Although he was teasing Mu Feng, Xiao Chen was still very happy to be able to meet him there. The two of them chatted for a while. They were both very happy to be able to meet here. After some banter, Xiao Chen said to Mu Feng, "You don't seem to be doing well in the Celestial Wolf Empire. Come back to the Moonless Empire with me." After not seeing him for almost a year, Mu Feng's progress was also very fast. He had reached the perfect heaven stage and was not far from breaking through to the Tao querying realm. If he could enter the Royal Academy and use of the Path of Tao, he could break through to the Tao querying realm in a short time. Mu Feng's face suddenly changed in the face of Xiao Chen's invitation. He immediately strode forward and grabbed Xiao Chen's arms. His face was full of anxiety. "Brother Xiao Chen, go to the Heavenly Wolf Empire quickly. We, a total of 23 of us, were captured by the Blood Wolf King of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Among them, Xiao Chen, your mother is also there." Mu Feng was too happy to see Xiao Chen before, so he did not have time to mention this matter. Hearing Mu Feng's words, Xiao Chen's face instantly darkened. His mother was captured by the Blood Wolf King in the Heavenly Wolf Empire? Xiao Chen looked at Mu Feng and asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" Since it was related to his mother, Xiao Chen naturally did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Facing Xiao Chen's inquiry, Mu Feng truthfully told him what had happened after they came to the Heavenly River continent. As mentioned before, Mu Feng and the others had been active in the Heavenly Wolf Empire since they came to the Heavenly River continent. There were a total of 23 people in the group, and the strongest among them was a Tao King realm expert. Xiao Chen's mother, Bai Ryue, was also among them. Everyone knew that Bai Ryue was Xiao Chen's mother, so they had always taken good care of her. Unfortunately, for some reason, they offended the Blood Wolf King, one of the 4 great princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. As a result, they were directly put on a wanted list and were later captured by the Blood Wolf King. In order to save their lives, the Tao King realm expert had no choice but to rely on the Blood Wolf King and serve him. As a result, they were able to survive until now. However, although their lives were saved, they were still imprisoned in the Blood Wolf Mansion, including Xiao Chen and Bai Ryue. Like the Moonless Empire, the Heavenly Wolf Empire also had 4 great princes, and the Blood Wolf King was one of the 4 great princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Xiao Chen truthfully told Xiao Chen the whole story. Hearing Mu Feng's words, Xiao Chen's eyes were filled with coldness. He had been trying to find the whereabouts of his parents, but there had been no news. Now that he finally knew the whereabouts of his mother, but she was actually imprisoned, it simply made Xiao Chen's heart burst with killing intent. Without the slightest hesitation, Xiao Chen immediately decided to go to the Heavenly Wolf Empire to rescue his mother. Since he knew the whereabouts of his mother, how could Xiao Chen let her continue to suffer? With a gloomy expression, Xiao Chen kept thinking of a rescue plan in his mind. At the same time, Zhang Qi and Gu Xiu also guessed Xiao Chen's thoughts. They knew that rescuing Bai Ryue would definitely be filled with danger because they had to enter deep into the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Only by entering the imperial capital would they be able to rescue Bai Ryue and the others. After that, they would have to take them out of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. However, the two of them knew that Xiao Chun would definitely not give up when it concerned Bai Ruyue, so they did not say anything. After pondering for a while, Xiao Chun said slowly in the end, "Mu Feng, go back first and act like nothing has happened. I'll go back and think of a plan. After that, I'll secretly enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire. You stay in Hulao Pass during this period of time. Once we rescue my mother, I'll go around Hulao Pass and take you back to the Moonless Empire." After thinking for a while, Xiao Chun could not think of a good plan. Moreover, Mu Feng obviously could not help with this matter. In the end, he could only choose to use the Moonless Empire's power. If he wanted to rescue Bai Ruyue, he naturally could not act rashly and alert the enemy. He could only think of a way to secretly enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire and then look for an opportunity. However, if he wanted to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire through Hulao Pass, Xiao Chen's power alone was not enough. He could only go back and ask Zhao Feng if he had any ideas. After all, Zhao Feng had been here for a long time and was the commander of the mountain-suppressing army. He was definitely very familiar with Hulao Pass. Perhaps he had some tricks up his sleeve. Fortunately, the entire mountain-suppressing army had joined Chu Wuming. Otherwise, Xiao Chen really would not have any ideas. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Mu Feng wanted to say something but hesitated. He wanted to tell Xiao Chen that rashly entering the Heavenly Wolf Empire was very dangerous. However, when he thought about how this matter concerned Xiao Chen's mother, Bai Ruyue, even if he said that, Xiao Chen would definitely not listen. Thus, Mu Feng did not say anything. Instead, it was Gu Xiu who spoke up. "Young master, entering the Heavenly Wolf Empire is very dangerous. You cannot act rashly. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 421. The four people present, including Xiao Chen, all knew that entering the Heavenly Wolf Empire was a very dangerous thing. First of all, since they were going to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire secretly, they couldn't have too many people. This way, if an accident happened, it would be difficult for them to deal with it. However, after hearing Gu Xiu's words, Xiao Chen said without hesitation, "Even if it's a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, I must go." It wasn't easy to get news of his mother. Furthermore, his mother was currently imprisoned by the Blood Wolf King. How could Xiao Chen not go? Not to mention a mere Heavenly Wolf Empire, even if it was the windless sacred sect, Xiao Chen wouldn't be the slightest bit afraid. As a son, if he couldn't even protect his mother, then what was the point of cultivating? What was the use of his strength? Seeing the determination on Xiao Chen's face, Gu Xiu and Zhang Qi did not say anything more. However, Mu Feng, who was beside them, wanted to say something but stopped. In fact, when they were talking just now, Mu Feng was still hiding something. A hint of hesitation flashed in his eyes. He didn't know if he should tell Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was extremely sensitive to Mu Feng's change. Looking at Mu Feng, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Mu Feng, are you still hiding something from me?" Seeing the change in Mu Feng's expression, Mu Feng hesitated for a moment and didn't know if he should say it or not. He couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. As such, Xiao Chen was even more certain that Mu Feng had something on his mind. Immediately, his face darkened and said, "Tell me, what else are you hiding from me? Do you believe that I won't beat you up?" After saying that, Xiao Chen directly raised his fist and was about to hit Mu Feng. Seeing this, Mu Feng gritted his teeth. He didn't dare to look directly at Xiao Chen and said loudly, I'll talk. Didn't I say that we were captured by the Blood Wolf King for some reason? The reason is that the Blood Wolf King took a fancy to Madame Bai Ruyue." It was as if Xiao Chen had used up all his strength to say those words. Mu Feng thought that Xiao Chen would get angry, but Xiao Chen did not make any sound for a long time. Mu Feng subconsciously looked at Xiao Chen and saw that Xiao Chen's eyes were already bloodshot at this time. Previously, Mu Feng did not say why they were captured by the Blood Wolf King, But now it was clear that the Blood Wolf King had taken a fancy to his mother, Bai Ruiyue. Without mentioning anything else, Bai Ruiyue was definitely a peerless beauty. In terms of looks, she did not lose to Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers. Otherwise, how could she have such a handsome appearance like Xiao Qin? The whole thing was a coincidence. When the Blood Wolf King saw Bai Ruiyue, he was deeply captivated by Bai Ruiyue. He had never met such a person before, so he immediately confessed his love to Bai Ruiyue. However, Bai Ruiyue naturally ignored the Blood Wolf King's adoration. She knew her mother very well. Bai Ruiyue's feelings for Xiao Qin would never change until death. She rejected the Blood Wolf King mercilessly. Of course, the Blood Wolf King would not let go so easily. In a rage, he captured Bai Ruiyue and the others and forcefully brought them back to the king's mansion. They had been imprisoned until now. The killing intent in his heart had completely exploded. As a son, who wouldn't be angry in the face of such a thing? With blood-red eyes, Xiao Qin looked at the horizon and said in an extremely cold voice, "Heavenly Wolf Empire, Blood Wolf King. Good, very good. If I, Xiao Qin, don't destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire, then I'm not worthy of being a son." At first, Xiao Qin only wanted to save Bai Ruiyue. But now, Xiao Qin simply wanted to kill his way to the Heavenly Wolf Empire and kill everyone in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Xiao Qin was extremely angry, but he knew that it was not the right time. The most important thing now was to save his mother safely. Secondly, he had to let Chu Wuming truly take over the Heavenly Wolf Empire. At this moment, Xiao Qin had another reason to help Chu Wuming, and that was to destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Only by letting Chu Wuming truly take over the Moonless Empire could Xiao Qin use the Moonless Empire's power to destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire. How dare you humiliate my parents? I, Xiao Qin, swear that I will destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire in this life. Suppressing the killing intent in his heart, Xiao Qin let Mu Feng return to the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army alone and pretend that nothing had happened. As for himself, Xiao Qin immediately rushed back to Jinshan City. Without stopping along the way, Xiao Qin brought Zhang Qi and Gu Xiu straight to the general's mansion after arriving at Jinshan City. Knowing that Xiao Qin had come to visit, Zhao Feng naturally didn't dare to be negligent and personally went out to receive him. Seeing Xiao Qin's cold face, Zhao Feng was even more shocked. After interacting with Xiao Qin for such a long time, Zhao Feng had never seen Xiao Qin so angry. After carefully inviting Xiao Qin into the main hall, Zhao Feng asked with some apprehension, "Young Master Xiao is looking for this general. General Zhao, do you have a way for us to secretly enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory?" Without beating around the bush, Xiao Qin directly stated his purpose of visit. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Zhao Feng was stunned at first, but after seeing Xiao Qin's ugly expression, he quickly replied truthfully. "There is a way, but the number of people cannot be too large. At most 20 people. If there are more, the Heavenly Wolf Empire will definitely discover us." As the main general of the Jinshan army, Zhao Feng naturally had a way to secretly enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire. After all, the Moonless Empire also had spies in the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory. Similarly, the Heavenly Wolf Empire also had spies in the Moonless Empire. However, although there was a way, the number of people couldn't be too large, or else the Heavenly Wolf Empire would definitely discover them. Hearing Zhao Feng's words, Xiao Qin immediately replied in a deep voice, "Okay, if that's the case, then go and prepare now. I will enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory today." Xiao Qin had to act today. After knowing the situation of his mother, Zhang Jingxiang, Xiao Qin couldn't wait any longer. Xiao Qin wanted to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory. Zhao Feng was stunned and asked with some doubt, "Young master wants to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory? Isn't this?" Zhao Feng wanted to say that it was somewhat dangerous, but before he could finish, Xiao Qin spoke coldly. "General Zhao doesn't need to say anything more. Just go and prepare. You don't need to worry about anything else. His tone was filled with an undeniable tone. Seeing this, Zhao Feng wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he could only nod his head respectfully. Zhao Feng had a way, so this was naturally the best outcome. After leaving the general's mansion, Xiao Chen immediately asked Zhang Qi to gather the 13 Tianshan continent cultivators who had followed him to Hulao Pass. Xiao Chen planned to only bring them to the Heavenly Wolf Empire this time. After gathering everyone, Zhao Feng quickly sent a message saying that everything was ready and they could act at any time. Hearing this, Xiao Chen secretly left Jinshan City with Zhang Qi and the rest. Following the route that Zhao Feng had prepared for them, they rushed towards the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 422. On this trip to the Heavenly Wolf Empire, Xiao Chen did not bring any experts from the mountain-suppressing army. Originally, Zhao Feng wanted to arrange for a few generals to protect Xiao Chen, but Xiao Chen rejected him. The most important thing for this operation was to keep it a secret. Before saving his mother, the identities of Xiao Chen and the others could not be exposed. Otherwise, not only would they be in danger, but Bai Rui's safety would also be hard to guarantee. Thus, Xiao Chen had to guarantee that he could trust the people around him completely. Only the cultivators of the Heavenly Chen continent could do this. Under Zhao Feng's lead, the group of 13 quickly left Jinshan City and entered the vast mountains to the right of Hulao Pass. The reason Hulao Pass was so difficult to break through was because of the vast mountains on both sides. Countless Yao beasts lived in these mountains, so it was difficult for an army to cross them. Even if they succeeded, they would suffer heavy casualties. It was precisely because an army could not cross them and could only enter the enemy's territory through Hulao Pass that this Hulao Pass could be said to be abnormally stable, even though it was constantly at war. Of course, an army could not pass through, but a small group could enter the enemy's territory through the mountains. This was also the path Xiao Chen and the others would take to reach the Heavenly Wolf Empire. After many years of war, both the Moonless Empire and the Heavenly Wolf Empire had found relatively safe paths in these vast mountains. As long as there were not too many people, they would not alarm the Yao beasts in the mountains, so they could pass through safely. As Zhao Feng led the way, a Heavenly Chen continent cultivator beside Xiao Chen asked in confusion, "General Zhao, since we know of such a path, why don't we just send soldiers to circle around the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army? Wouldn't we be able to break through the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army at Hulao Pass with a pincer attack?" They had the method to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire, so why didn't the army just circle around the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army? Asked the Heavenly Chen continent cultivator. The fact that he could say something like that clearly proved that he did not know how to lead an army. However, Zhao Feng did not ridicule him. Instead, he explained patiently. This path can indeed allow us to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire safely, but it can only allow a small number of people to pass through. If an army enters like us, no matter how well they hide, they'll definitely alarm the Yao beasts in the depths of the mountains. In this way, we'll have to fight a bloody battle with the Yao beasts before we even reach the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Even if we pass through the mountains and enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army, we won't have the strength to continue fighting. On the other hand, if we dispatch a small group into the Heavenwolf Empire like this, then they can only act as scouts, and it's impossible for them to launch an attack against the army of the Heavenwolf Empire. After all, even a Dao Emperor would definitely perish if he were to fall into the encirclement of an army of 1,000,000. The importance of a Dao Emperor to an empire is obvious. Zhao Feng explained in a soft voice. Hearing this, the Heavenly Chen continent cultivator who had asked the question before nodded his head, an awkward expression appearing on his face. Xiao Chen did not pay attention to their conversation. He was silent all the way. He was thinking about a plan to rescue his mother. However, he knew nothing about the situation in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. There was no way he could come up with a feasible plan. He could only wait until they reached the Heavenly Wolf Empire and plan the rescue according to the actual situation. They traveled for 3 days. Because they were traveling through the mountain range filled with demonic beasts, their speed was not fast, let alone flying in the air. Even though they had traveled for 3 days, they still had not walked out of the mountain range. With Zhao Feng leading the way, he was extremely familiar with the environment. Moreover, he was a super expert of the Dao sovereign realm, so his perception was extremely strong. Therefore, when the Yao beasts approached several times, they were able to hide in time and were not discovered by the Yao beasts. The Yao beasts here were not to be underestimated. Unlike the Tiantian continent, the Yao beasts of the Tianhe continent were mortal enemies with humans. There was a very clear division between human territory and Yao beast territory. Once a human entered the territory of a Yao beast, he would be surrounded and killed by countless Yao beasts. On the other hand, if a Yao beast entered the territory of a Yao beast, it would be the same. It took them a total of 10 days to pass through the mountain range, and this was because they had traveled day and night without stopping. Otherwise, it would have taken even longer. Finally, they passed through the mountains. If they continued forward, they would be in the territory of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Zhao Feng looked at Xiao Chen and said worriedly, "Young Master Xiao, do you really not need me to accompany you?" Zhao Feng had originally planned to accompany Xiao Chen. However, after passing through the mountains, Xiao Chen asked him to return to Jinshan City. Hearing Zhao Feng's words, Xiao Chen shook his head. "General Zhao still needs to stay in Jinshan City. There is no need to follow me. If His Highness comes back, please tell him that I will return safely. Tell him not to worry." Due to the urgency of the matter, Xiao Chen did not have time to inform Chu Wuming. He could only ask Zhao Feng to pass on the message. Hearing this, Zhao Feng nodded helplessly. He then turned around and returned to Jinshan City. After watching Zhao Feng leave, Xiao Chen turned his head and looked ahead. Up ahead was the territory of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. A flash of killing intent flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. "Let's go." The group entered the territory of the Heavenly Wolf Empire safely. They had bypassed the guards of the Heavenly Wolf Empire at Hulao Pass and had truly entered the territory of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Xiao Chen did not know much about the Heavenly Wolf Empire. The most important thing now was to find a city and inquire about the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Although Mu Feng had said that his mother was imprisoned in the imperial capital, Xiao Chen naturally could not go directly to the imperial capital. First of all, Xiao Chen did not know where the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was. Moreover, he knew nothing about the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. If he wanted to save his mother, he naturally had to be fully prepared. After all, there was only one chance. If he failed the first time, it would be extremely difficult to save his mother. The Blood Wolf King would definitely be on guard. Following a direction, Xiao Chen's group advanced towards the Heavenly Wolf Empire's residence. As one of the 3 great empires of the Danyang County, the Heavenly Wolf Empire's area was not smaller than the Moonless Empire. Therefore, after 2 days, Xiao Chen's group finally found a small city. They did not dare to fly rashly. When they arrived at the small city, the group silently entered the city. They had been on the road for almost half a month and everyone was very nervous. Entering the city, they could rest for a few days. Secondly, they could inquire about the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Most importantly, they wanted to know about the Blood Wolf King. After all, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 423. They successfully sneaked into this small city called Yellow Sand City. This place was still at the border of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, so Yellow Sand City was not very prosperous. It could not even compare to Moon Trace City. They went directly to a restaurant in the city. Before leaving, Xiao Chen had already asked Zhao Feng for a list of the Moonless Empire's spies in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Yellow Sand City was at the border, so there was naturally an intelligence station of the Moonless Empire. Striding into the restaurant, Xiao Chen silently showed a token to the waiter. This token was given to him by Zhao Feng. With this token, the Moonless Empire's spies would be able to confirm Xiao Chen's identity. His actions were very secretive. Sure enough, after seeing the token, the waiter said without batting an eyelid, "Dear guests, please come in." He led Xiao Chen and the others into the restaurant as if they were ordinary guests. They followed the waiter all the way to the backyard. Xiao Chen and the others were then led into a secret room. From the outside, it was impossible to notice that there was a secret room here. There were no windows in the secret room, only faint candlelight illuminating the surroundings. After arriving here, the waiter bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, my lords. Call the person in charge here to see me." Xiao Chen did not waste any words in the face of the waiter's bow. Hearing this, the waiter respectfully left the secret room. Clearly, he was going to inform the person in charge here to see Xiao Chen. After the waiter left, Zhang Qi came to Xiao Chen's side and whispered to Xiao Chen, "Young master, the Burning Sky ruler has already replied. He will secretly go to Hulao Pass to receive us in a month." Xiao Chen had naturally informed the Burning Sky ruler about the rescue of his mother, by Ruyue. However, he did not ask the Burning Sky ruler to enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire with him. There were two main reasons why he didn't allow the Heaven-Scorching ruler to travel with them. Firstly, if the Heaven-Scorching ruler were to travel with them, then the target would be too great. After all, the sudden appearance of an unfamiliar Dao Emperor realm expert would probably cause anyone to investigate thoroughly. Presently, the Heaven-Scorching ruler was the retired Emperor of the Moonless Empire, so the Heavenly Wolf Empire only had to investigate slightly before finding out. So, it wasn't suitable for the Heaven-Scorching ruler to sneak into the territory of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Secondly, after Xiao Chen's group rescued by Ryue's group, it was naturally impossible for them to return through the mountain range on both sides of Hulao Pass. This was because there were too many people. Zhao Feng had clearly stated that it was impossible for more than 20 people to return to the Moonless Empire through the mountain range. During this period of time, they would definitely alarm Yao beasts. Furthermore, Xiao Chen's group was not familiar with the situation in the mountain range, so it would only be more dangerous. Since they couldn't return in secret, there was only one path left, and that was to break through the encirclement from the front. In this way, they would naturally need the support of the Heaven-Scorching ruler. According to Xiao Chen's plan, after rescuing by Ryue, Xiao Chen's group would head straight for Hulao Pass. Afterwards, the Heaven-Scorching ruler would lead them and cooperate with the Mountain Suppression Army to launch a sudden attack on the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. In this way, Xiao Chen's group would take advantage of the chaos to break through the defensive line at Hulao Pass and return to the Moonless Empire. The plan to retreat had already been arranged, and the Heaven-Scorching ruler was naturally impossible to accomplish this. Just the Mountain Suppression Army alone was unable to throw the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire into complete chaos. Xiao Chen nodded slightly when he heard what Zhang Qi said. Now, the only thing left was how to rescue them, and this was also the most difficult part. They didn't have to wait long in the secret chamber. Soon, a fat middle-aged man walked in. This person's cultivation was only at the heaven realm. At a glance, one could tell that he was a profiteer through and through. No one would associate him with a spy. It was precisely because of this that this person was able to become the manager of this station. This kind of person was the least likely to be discovered and suspected by others. The fat man bowed to Xiao Chen's group. Seeing this, Xiao Chen said, "Now, tell us the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire in detail. Remember, it must be detailed, especially regarding the Blood Wolf King." Xiao Chen's group had come here to inquire about the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Although the fat man was puzzled by Xiao Chen's words, he didn't refuse. After all, Xiao Chen had come here with Zhao Feng's token, so there was no need to doubt his identity. Sitting in a circle in the secret chamber, the fat man explained the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire to Xiao Chen and the others in detail. According to the fat man, the situation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire wasn't very different from the Moonless Empire. The imperial family was the actual ruler of the entire empire, and there were also 4 princes under the imperial family. However, the only difference between the Moonless Empire and the Moonless Empire was that the 4 princes of the Moonless Empire didn't have military power, while the 4 princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire controlled a large number of troops. The entire army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was divided into 5 groups: the imperial family's personal army and the 4 princes' personal army. As the name implied, the imperial family's personal army was controlled by the imperial family, while the 4 princes' personal army was controlled by the 4 princes. This was the biggest difference between the Heavenly Wolf Empire and the Moonless Empire. All the troops of the Moonless Empire were controlled by the imperial family, the Chu family, but not the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Due to the large number of soldiers in their hands, the 4 princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire possessed great authority. They were existences that ruled over a region. As one of the 4 princes, the Blood Wolf King controlled the 1,000,000 soldiers stationed at Hulao Pass. It could be said that the Blood Wolf King was in charge of the entire war in Hulao Pass. The imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire almost never paid any attention to it. Only when a great war broke out would the other 3 princes and the imperial family mobilize their troops. After the fat man told Xiao Chen everything he knew in detail, Xiao Chen frowned and fell into deep thought after hearing the fat man's word. He had never imagined that the 4 princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire would have such great authority. Compared to them, the 4 princes of the Moonless Empire were like mere figureheads with no real power. However, this was not good news for Xiao Chen. The greater the influence of the Blood Wolf King, the more difficult it would be for Xiao Chen to rescue them. After all, the Blood Wolf King controlled a large number of troops. If anything happened, he did not need to report to the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. He could make his own decisions, unlike the 4 princes of the Moonless Empire, who needed to report to the imperial family before they could take action. The difficulty of the rescue had undoubtedly increased by a lot. After being silent for a while, Xiao Chen did not have any good ideas. He looked at the fat man beside him. This person had lived in the Heavenly Wolf Empire for a long time. Xiao Chen thought that this person might have some ideas, so he immediately opened his mouth and said, "This time we were ordered to go to the imperial capital to rescue some people. These people are very important to the Moonless Empire. We cannot fail. Currently, we only know that this person is imprisoned in the imperial capital by the Blood Wolf King. So, do you have any good ideas to rescue this person? Please add, please vote, please recommend." Chapter 424. Xiao Chen said that the rescue of his mother, by Ruyue, and the others was an order from the higher-ups. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the fatty's expression turned serious. Since it was an order from the higher-ups, he naturally had to follow it. He wasn't afraid of the fatty asking. Anyway, he would say that it was an order from the 3rd prince, Chu Wuming. Xiao Chen believed that Chu Wuming would know what to say. He looked at the fatty calmly. He couldn't think of a solution at the moment, but the fatty was very familiar with the Heavenly Wolf Empire. He might have a solution. Faced with Xiao Chen's gaze, the fat man was silent for a while before he slowly opened his mouth to speak. "My lord, in my opinion, it's almost impossible to save people from the Blood Wolf King. Moreover, it's to save 23 people at once. The difficulty is extremely high. If it was any other time, I definitely wouldn't believe that my lord would succeed. However, there is a chance now, but in my opinion, the success rate is less than 10%. The fatty clearly knew a lot about the Blood Wolf King. After all, as one of the 4 great princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, He was a person with real power and was naturally the focus of the Moonless Empire's investigation. According to the fatty's understanding of the Blood Wolf King, not only was he scheming, he was also vicious and merciless. He was definitely a troublesome existence. To save 23 people from his hands was no different from snatching food from a tiger's mouth. However, Xiao Qun revealed a smile when he heard this. He wasn't afraid of difficulties, but he was afraid of not having a solution. As long as there was a solution, Xiao Qun was willing to give it a try no matter how dangerous it was. Because this was related to his mother, Xiao Qun wouldn't back down. Quickly tell me your solution. Xiao Qun looked at the fatty and urged anxiously. Along the way, Xiao Qun had been thinking of a rescue plan, but until now, he still didn't have the slightest clue. The reason was that Xiao Qun didn't understand the situation in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Now that the fatty said he had a solution, how could Xiao Qun not be excited? Under Xiao Qun's anxious gaze, the fat man said, "If it were any other time, there would be no other way. However, Your Excellency has come at the right time. During this time, the disciples of the two sects have held a grand meeting of the two sects in the Tianlang Empire. Therefore, the imperial family of the Tianlang Empire and the 4 grand princes dare not neglect it. After all, the strength of the two sects in Danyang County is not the slightest bit weaker than the 3 empires. It is even said that there are half-saints in the 2 sections. There were a total of 5 major forces in the Danyang region. Apart from the 3 empires, there were 2 major sects, the Celestial Equal Sect and the Qingyang Sect. The nature of a sect was completely different from the nature of a country. Sects took the route of business. In terms of the number of people, the 2 sects added together were not even a fraction of the number of people in an empire. However, every disciple of a sect had extraordinary combat strength, not to mention the top figures of the sect. Compared to the 3 empires, the difference between the 2 sects was an enormous gap in the number of people they had, and it was also in the quantity and quality of their experts. In the 3 great empires, the strongest experts were merely at the Tao Emperor realm, whereas there were half-saints residing in the 2 great sections. It was precisely because both sides had their own strengths and weaknesses, and coupled with the fact that they pursued different things that they were able to live in harmony with each other. After all, the 2 sects didn't need territory. Just based on this alone, there was no conflict between them and the 3 empires. Moreover, even though the number of cultivators in the 3 empires far exceeded the 2 sects had half-saints. In this way, both sects had always maintained an extremely delicate balance, and their relationship was very stable. In short, the 2 sects had a good relationship with the 3 empires. However, as seen from before, the reason it was like this was because there was no conflict between them. However, just like the 3 empires, there were numerous conflicts between the 2 sections. However, the conflicts between the sects wouldn't be resolved by attacking each other like empires. The sects had their own way of resolving it, and that was to compete in martial arts, and the outcome would be decided by the strength of their disciples. So, there had always been a tradition between the 2 sects, and that was the grand meeting of the 2 sects. It was held once every 10 years, and the location was chosen between the 3 empires. The reason why the grand meeting was held in the 3 empires was that there needed to be a witness, and the 3 empires in the Pil Sun region were obviously the best witnesses. The 2 sects used martial arts competitions to determine the strength of each sect, and then they would decide the division of cultivation resources. Xiao Qun had heard of the grand meeting of the 2 sects, but he hadn't paid attention to it in the past. At this moment, when he heard the fatty mention it, Xiao Qun thought about it carefully again. He never imagined that the grand meeting of the 2 sects this time would actually be held in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. However, it made sense when he thought about it. The previous grand meeting of the 2 sects was held in the Moonless Empire, so it would naturally be held in the Heavenly Wolf Empire this time. Seeing that Xiao Qun was deep in thought, the fatty didn't disturb him. He waited for Xiao Chen to come back to his senses before he continued. It is precisely because of the grand meeting of the two sects that a large number of disciples from the two sects have poured into the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. My lord, you can disguise yourself as a disciple of the two sects and sneak in. This way, you can find an opportunity to approach the Bloodwolf King. However, even so, it will be extremely difficult to rescue the people. That's why I said that the success rate is only 10%, but it's still better than not being able to get close to it. The fatty's plan was very simple. He would use the grand meeting of the two sects to disguise himself as a disciple of the two sects, then sneak into the imperial capital and find a way to approach the Bloodwolf King. This was an opportunity, but that was it. How to rescue the people and whether they could succeed or not still depended on the ability of Xiao Chen and the others, and even a little bit of luck. If they were unlucky, it would be impossible to succeed. The fatty told Xiao Chen his idea, but in his heart, he didn't think that Xiao Chen and the others could succeed. He even felt a little helpless. Who was the one who set this mission? To rescue 23 people from the Bloodwolf King at once. Isn't this sending people to their deaths? His eyes were full of sympathy as he looked at Xiao Chen and the others. Although he didn't say anything, the fatty was already certain that Xiao Chen and the others wouldn't be able to return. The Bloodwolf King was actually a simple character. Even with the grand meeting of the two sects, it would still be difficult to succeed. Xiao Chen didn't know what the fatty was thinking. After hearing his words, he fell into deep thought. This method is indeed feasible, but there are still many details that need to be modified. Prepare a room for us. We will be resting in Yellow Sand City for a few days. Needing some time to think, Xiao Chen looked at the fatty and said. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the fatty quickly prepared a room for everyone and locked himself in the room. Xiao Chen constantly thought about the method that the fatty mentioned and constantly perfected it, trying to make it as foolproof as possible. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 425. Xiao Chen thought about it for a long time. The idea was suggested by the fat shopkeeper, but it was just an idea. There were still many flaws in it. What Xiao Chen was doing now was to remove those flaws one by one and make it into a perfect plan. For an entire day and night, Xiao Chen repeatedly thought about the feasibility of this plan countless times. In the end, Xiao Chen finally came up with an extremely perfect plan in his heart. First, he called the fat shopkeeper and asked him if there were any disciples from the two major sects in Yellow Sand City. In the face of Xiao Chen's inquiry, the fat shopkeeper didn't ask much and answered truthfully. There are, but this disciple doesn't look like an ordinary disciple. What do you want to do, sir? According to the fat shopkeeper, there was indeed a disciple from the Tianqi sect in Yellow Sand City because of the two major sects' grand meeting. He was just passing by Yellow Sand City and seemed to be rushing to the imperial capital. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. He immediately asked the fat shopkeeper to keep a close watch on this person. Then, Xiao Chen called Zhang Qi. Young master, you were looking for me? Zhang Qi, who didn't know why Xiao Chen was looking for him, pushed the door open and asked. Seeing Zhang Qi's arrival, Xiao Chen smiled slightly and pointed to the chair beside him, indicating for him to sit down first. Then Xiao Chen asked in a low voice, Senior is very knowledgeable. Have you learned the art of disguise? After thinking for an entire day, Xiao Chen finally thought of a way to disguise himself as a disciple of the two major sects and sneak into the imperial capital. As for what to do next, he could only take it one step at a time. If he wanted to disguise himself as a disciple of the two major sects, he naturally needed to use the art of disguise. However, Xiao Chen didn't know how to do it. After all, disguise was just a small skill and very few people learned it. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Zhang Qi was stunned at first, but he quickly nodded and replied, This old man did learn a disguise when he was young, but it wasn't a brilliant method. To put it bluntly, it was just some camouflage. Zhang Qi had indeed learned the art of disguise. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's face immediately showed a touch of joy. He immediately asked Zhang Qi to teach him the art of disguise. The disguise technique that Zhang Qi had mastered was only the most basic disguise technique, so it was not difficult to learn. In just 6 to 8 hours, Xiao Chen had completely mastered the disguise technique. After learning this disguise technique, Xiao Chen could already pretend to be a disciple of the two sections. However, before that, Xiao Chen still needed an identity. This identity was naturally the disciple of the Tianqi sect who was still in Yellow Sand City. He had already asked the fat shopkeeper to keep a close watch on the disciple of the Tianqi sect. After learning the disguise technique, Xiao Chen quickly called the fat shopkeeper over. Then, under the fat shopkeeper's lead, Xiao Chen quickly came to an inn in Yellow Sand City where the disciple of the Tianqi sect was staying. He didn't act rashly. Thinking that the disciple of the Tianqi sect had been on the road for 2 days, he probably wouldn't leave Yellow Sand City tonight. Therefore, Xiao Chen waited until late at night before sneaking into the disciple's residence alone under the cover of the night. He already knew the room where the disciple of the Tianqi sect was staying from the fat shopkeeper. At the same time, Xiao Chen also knew that the disciple's cultivation was the same as his, at the beginner Dao querying realm. To be able to reach the beginner Dao querying realm at such a young age, just as the fat shopkeeper had said, the identity of the Tianqi sect disciple shouldn't be simple. However, this wasn't a problem for Xiao Chen at all. In fact, it was even better. After all, it was less likely to arouse suspicion if their cultivation was the same. He quietly sneaked into the disciple's inn. Just as Xiao Chen arrived outside the disciple's room, Xiao Chen heard a faint panting sound outside the room. Xiao Chen wasn't unfamiliar with this sound. He didn't even need to think to know what was happening in the room. Pursing his lips, Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and helplessly. "Sigh, I didn't mean to ruin your happy occasion." Unaware that Xiao Chen had already arrived outside the door, the disciple of the Tianqi sect was currently pressing down on a coquettish girl, working hard. This was definitely the time when a person's guard was at its lowest. Therefore, when Xiao Chen suddenly rushed into the room, the two of them didn't even have time to react and were quickly taken down by Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen said coldly after killing the coquettish girl and crippling the Tianqi sect disciple's cultivation. He placed the scarlet-edged sword on the disciple's neck. "If you don't want to die, I'll ask and you'll answer. Understand?" Xiao Chen didn't directly kill the Tianqi sect disciple. There were some things that he needed to know. After all, if he wanted to borrow this person's identity, he had to at least have a rough understanding of him. Needless to say, this Tianqi sect disciple's appearance was quite good. He could be considered a handsome young man. Of course, compared to himself, he was still a little lacking. When he heard Xiao Chen's indifferent words, the Tianqi sect disciple nodded repeatedly in horror. "Ask away. I guarantee that I'll answer all your questions." He didn't even have time to react before he was seized by Xiao Chen. Moreover, his cultivation was crippled. After recovering from his initial shock, the Tianqi sect disciple was naturally terrified. He didn't dare to hide anything from Xiao Chen and answered truthfully. An hour later, Xiao Chen walked out of the room. He already knew the answer he wanted from this person. According to the disciple, he was a core disciple of the Tianqi sect, and his name was Wang Huan. His status in the Tianqi sect really wasn't low because his grandfather was the Grand Elder of the Tianqi sect, a great figure at the Dao Emperor realm. He basically understood the situation of the young man. He ignored the two corpses because the fat manager would send someone to deal with them later. As spies in Yellow Sand City, the fat manager and the others were absolutely skilled in dealing with such matters. They didn't have to worry about the corpses being discovered at all. After tonight, Wang Huan and the young woman would vanish from the face of the earth, and Xiao Chen would become Wang Huan. Not long after Xiao Chen left, two black-clothed men appeared in Wang Huan's room. They neatly took away the two corpses and even restored the room to its original state. There was no sign of a battle at all. Satisfied, Xiao Chen returned to his residence. Early the next morning, Xiao Chen, who had changed into the uniform of a Tianqi sect disciple with Wang Huan's identity token hanging from his waist, strode out of the room. At the same time, Xiao Chen used the disguise technique Zhang Qi had taught him to change his appearance. At a glance, Xiao Chen was no different from Wang Huan. Even Zhang Qi and the others who had been waiting outside the door couldn't help but be slightly stunned when they saw Xiao Chen. Gu Xiu couldn't help but speak. Senior Zhang Qi's disguise technique is really brilliant. After the young master used it, I couldn't see any flaws at all. Chapter 426. After using the disguise technique taught by Zhang Qi, Xiao Chen was indeed no different from Wang Huan. One had to admit that Zhang Qi's disguise technique was quite good. Now that the real Wang Huan was dead, Xiao Chen's success rate of entering the imperial capital using Wang Huan's identity would be much higher. Xiao Chen smiled at everyone and said, "Let's start the operation according to what we said last night." After killing Wang Huan yesterday, and taking his identity token, Xiao Chen had spent the night formulating a plan with everyone. Zhang Qi said worriedly when she heard that Xiao Chen was going to proceed according to the plan. "Young master, isn't this plan a little too dangerous? Why don't we?" As early as last night when everyone was discussing, Zhang Qi felt that Xiao Chen's plan was too risky. However, they didn't have a better plan, so they could only choose to listen to Xiao Chen. Now, seeing that everyone was going to act according to the plan, Zhang Qi's heart was still filled with worry. Seeing that Zhang Qi was still worried, Xiao Chen said, "Senior Zhang Qi, it's impossible to save my mother and the other warriors of the Heavenly Chen mainland without taking some risks. Don't worry, I'm using Wang Huan's identity now. Nothing will happen." According to Xiao Chen's plan, everyone would be divided into 5 groups and enter the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire in batches. Xiao Chen would be alone. After entering the imperial city, Zhang Qi and the others only needed to find a place to stay and wait for the right time. As for Xiao Chen, he would use the identity of Wang Huan to contact the Blood Wolf King and find an opportunity to rescue his mother, Bai Ruyue, and the other warriors of the Tianqian continent. Compared to Xiao Chen, Zhang Qi and the others' mission wasn't difficult. They only needed to successfully sneak into the imperial capital without being discovered. Xiao Chen had to take the initiative to approach the Blood Wolf King. Moreover, Xiao Chen was alone. Once his identity was exposed, there would be no hope for him to escape. Worried about Xiao Chen's safety, Zhang Qi didn't agree with Xiao Chen's plan. Although there was no better choice now, it was too dangerous for Xiao Chen to act like this. Knowing what Zhang Qi was worried about, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Senior Zhang Qi, there's no need to say more. This is the best solution. Let's not waste any more time. Let's leave Yellow Sand City today and act separately." He didn't give Zhang Qi another chance to speak. Seeing this, Zhang Qi still wanted to say something, but Gu Xiu spoke first. "Senior Zhang Qi, the young master isn't a reckless person. Don't worry, we'll follow the young master's plan and think about how to sneak into the imperial capital." Gu Xiu motioned Zhang Qi not to worry anymore. Anyone could see that Xiao Chen had already made up his mind on this matter, and no one could change Xiao Chen's decision. Hearing Gu Xiu's words, Zhang Qi sighed softly and didn't say anything else. Everything was ready. Xiao Chen also planned to leave Yellow Sand City and rush to the imperial capital today. Of course, Zhang Qi and the others obviously couldn't accompany him on the way, so Xiao Chen could only travel alone. Before leaving, Xiao Chen found the fat shopkeeper and said with a serious expression, "Don't tell anyone about what we're doing." "Sir, don't worry. I know what to do." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the fat shopkeeper respectfully nodded and replied. The fat shopkeeper was a smart person, and in his line of work, he naturally knew the importance of keeping his mouth shut. Nodding in satisfaction, Xiao Chen left Yellow Sand City. From this moment on, Xiao Chen's identity was Wang Huan, the grandson of the celestial equal-sex great elder. He strode out of Yellow Sand City. As Yellow Sand City was only a small city, there was no teleportation formation. If he wanted to use the teleportation formation to get to the imperial capital, Xiao Chen still had to travel another 500 miles to the west before he could use the teleportation formation to get to the imperial capital. A distance of 500 miles was naturally not too far for Xiao Chen. Now that he had the identity of Wang Huan, Xiao Chen didn't have to be secretive anymore. He could fly in the air without any scruples. After all, as a disciple of the celestial equal sect, if he still acted secretively, it would be easy for others to suspect him. After traveling for half a day, Xiao Chen finally arrived at a city called Lu City. Lu City was much more prosperous than Yellow Sand City. At the same time, there was a teleportation formation in Lu City that led to the imperial capital. With Wang Huan's identity, Xiao Chen strode into Lu City. No one stopped him along the way. It was no secret that the two-sects grand meeting was held in the Celestial Wolf Empire. Therefore, during this period of time, there were many disciples of the two sects in the Celestial Wolf Empire. The Celestial Wolf Empire also provided the greatest convenience to the disciples of the two sections. Of course, this was an order from the imperial family. They didn't need to pay a fee to enter the city. Even the teleportation formation was free of charge. They only needed to show the identity token of the two sects' disciples. Strolling along the streets of Lu City, Xiao Chen didn't plan to stay in Lu City for long. Just as Xiao Chen was heading straight for the teleportation formation, a happy shout came from behind him. "Senior brother Wang Huan." Hearing this voice, Xiao Chen turned his head and saw two young men wearing the same Celestial Qi sect's disciple uniform running over. Judging from their actions, they obviously knew Wang Huan. He didn't expect to meet Celestial Qi sect's disciples in Lu City. However, Xiao Chen was prepared for this. He smiled at the two of them and asked, "Why are you here?" Xiao Chen did not know the identities of the two men, but he was able to put on a good act. Hearing this, the two men quickly walked up to Xiao Chen. One of them said respectfully, "The two of us are going to use the teleportation formation in Lu City to go to the imperial capital. Senior brother Wang Huan, are you going to the imperial capital as well?" The two of them were very respectful to Wang Huan. However, it was normal. After all, Wang Huan's status in the Celestial Qi sect wasn't low. Furthermore, he had a grandfather who was the Great Elder. It wasn't surprising that he had some followers among the Celestial Qi sect's disciples. Xiao Chen nodded faintly and said, "I'm also planning to head to the imperial capital." "That's great. Senior brother Wang Huan, you left the sect to travel for 2 years. We were still thinking that senior brother Wang Huan would definitely come to the two sects' grand meeting this time." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, the disciple who spoke just now added, "As the saying goes, the speaker has no intention, but the listener has the heart." The disciple's words didn't seem to have any problems, but Xiao Chen couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. Wang Huan had left the Celestial Qi sect to travel for 2 years? This was really an unexpected gain. Since Wang Huan had left the Celestial Qi sect for 2 years, it was even more difficult for Xiao Chen to be exposed. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen was in a good mood. He smiled at the two of them and said, "Let's go. Since we've met, let's head to the imperial capital together." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 427. They bumped into 2 disciples of the Tianqi sect in Lu City, and they were obviously familiar with Wang Huan. As such, the 3 of them naturally rushed to the imperial capital together. Xiao Chen spoke very little along the way. After all, he was not the real Wang Huan. The more he spoke, the easier it was to expose his identity. Sensing the change in Xiaochen, the two disciples of the Tianqi sect noticed the difference and followed closely behind Xiaochen. One of them whispered, "Don't you feel that senior brother Wang Huan is different from before? You feel it too?" This time, senior brother Wang Huan seems to have become more taciturn. Upon hearing this person's words, another person replied softly. It was natural for them to feel the change. After all, the real Wang Huan was already dead. The Wang Huan standing in front of them was just Xiaochen in disguise. In order to not expose his identity, Xiaochen gave off an extremely cold feeling along the way and never took the initiative to speak. Compared to the previous Wang Huan, the current Wang Huan had indeed changed a lot. However, the real Wang Huan had left the Tianqi sect to train for 2 years. Therefore, although the two disciples were puzzled, they did not think too much about it. After all, a lot of things could change in 2 years. Especially when Wang Huan was still so young and had been training outside for 2 years. He was more mature and his personality had changed. This was not strange. They attributed the difference in Xiaochen to his training in the past 2 years. However, the two disciples did not know that the real Wang Huan had never changed. Unfortunately, he was already dead. Along the way to the teleportation array in Lu City, the three of them showed their identity tokens. Then, through the teleportation array in Lu City, the three of them directly arrived at the imperial capital of the Tianlang Empire. As the capital of an empire, the imperial capital of the Tianlang Empire was not inferior to the imperial capital of the Moonless Empire. It was also incomparably prosperous. When Xiaochen stepped out of the teleportation array, a disciple of the Tianqi sect behind him said respectfully, "Senior brother Wang Huan, are we returning to the sect's encampment first? The major competition to determine the participants will be in 2 days. In the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Celestial Equal sect naturally had its own encampment, which was provided by the imperial family. Moreover, as the two sects' grand meeting was approaching, the Celestial Equal sect's internal competition would be held in 2 days to determine the participants of the two sects' grand meeting." Upon hearing the disciples' words, Xiaochen nodded slightly and said, "Let's go." As Wang Huan's henchman, compared to 2 years ago, the two disciples could not help but feel a sense of admiration towards Xiaochen. They secretly thought that senior brother Wang Huan was completely different from before after not seeing him for 2 years. In the past, Wang Huan had relied on his background to gain the respect of the disciples of the Tianqi sect. However, at this moment, the two disciples of the Tianqi sect respected Xiaochen from the bottom of their hearts. Even though Xiaochen did not do anything special along the way, the faint pressure he unconsciously emitted was constantly and imperceptibly changing the two disciples' impression of him. What a joke! Even though Wang Huan's background in the Tianqi sect was not weak, Xiaochen was once the leader of the 10 great prides of the heavenly Qin continent. Since he held a high position all year round, Xiaochen naturally had a trace of the dignity of a person in a high position. Xiaochen followed behind the two disciples with a calm expression. Along the way, he took the opportunity to ask the two of them who would be leading the Tianqi sect to participate in the two sects' grand meeting. The two disciples did not conceal anything when faced with Xiaochen's question, nor did they find it strange. After all, Xiaochen had been training outside for 2 years, so it was normal that he did not know about this. He answered their questions truthfully. According to them, the sect master would personally lead the expedition to the grand meeting of the two sects, and the second elder, third elder, and 2 other great figures at the Tao Emperor realm would be present as well. As for Wang Huan's grandfather, the grand elder of the Heavenly Unity sect, he hadn't come this time. Xiaochen heaved a sigh of relief when he found out that Wang Huan's grandfather did not come. Needless to say, he was really lucky. After all, when he disguised himself as Wang Huan, It was naturally Wang Huan's relatives who would be the easiest to see through his disguise because they understood Wang Huan the best. Now that Wang Huan's grandfather had not come, it was much safer. Under the lead of the two disciples, the three of them quickly arrived at the Tianqi sect's encampment. It was located at the right side of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's imperial palace. The estate belonged to the imperial family. Because of the grand meeting between the two sects, the imperial family had provided it to the Tianqi sect as a temporary encampment. Two attendants of the Tianqi sect were responsible for guarding the entrance. They were stunned when they saw Xiao Chen's group of three, but they quickly stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Young Master Wang Huan is back. The two of them obviously knew Wang Huan's identity and were extremely respectful to him. Xiao Chen only nodded his head indifferently in the face of their greetings. He did not say anything and directly walked into the courtyard. The two disciples were already used to Xiao Chen's indifferent behavior, but the two attendants looked at each other in confusion. In the past, Wang Huan was definitely an extremely arrogant person. He relied on his grandfather's identity and was like a hedonistic young master in the Tianqi sect. But now, after not seeing him for 2 years, Wang Huan had actually become so indifferent? They could not feel the arrogance from before, but the arrogance that was emitted from his bones was something that was not there before. In other words, the two of them could sense that Xiao Chen was even more arrogant than 2 years ago. However, this arrogance was deep in his bones and was restrained. It was not like before, where it was deliberately fake. This feeling was like the difference between a nouveau riche and a large family that had been passed down for God knows how many years. Although they were both rich, the feeling that they gave off was completely different. The news that Wang Huan, who had gone out alone for 2 years, had returned quickly reached the ears of the Tianqi sect master. Upon hearing that Wang Huan had returned, the Tianqi sect master smiled faintly. This little guy, I don't know what hit him 2 years ago. He suddenly decided to go out to train and did not return to the sect during this period. Since he is back now, let him come over. I want to see if this little guy has made any progress in these 2 years. The sect master had personally summoned Xiao Chen. Soon, after receiving the news, he came to the courtyard where the Tianqi sect master was staying alone. When Xiao Chen walked into a bamboo courtyard with an extremely beautiful environment, not only was the clan leader of the Tianqi clan present, but also the second elder and the third elder. In addition, there was a young girl sitting beside the three of them. Xiao Chen's gaze swept across the 4 of them indifferently. His gaze did not linger on the young lady at all. Then, he bowed to the Tianqi sect master and said, "Disciple pays his respects to sect master, second elder, and third elder." He did not care about the young lady at all. In response, the Tianqi sect master and the other 2 people's expressions changed slightly. They were obviously surprised by Xiao Chen's actions and wondered what was wrong with Wang Huan. The young lady before them was his dream lover since he was young. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 428. The sect master of the Tianqi sect was called Gu Qi. He was a genuine half-saint expert. The girl in green beside him was Gu Qi's daughter, Gu Lingyao. Gu Lingyao was the goddess in the hearts of countless people in the Tianqi sect. Not only was she born noble, but she was also extremely beautiful. Her talent was also the best among the younger generation in the Tianqi sect. Such a perfect woman naturally made countless disciples of the Tianqi sect go crazy. Wang Huan was one of them. It could even be said that the reason Wang Huan went out to train for 2 years was entirely because of Gu Lingyao. Because of their families, Wang Huan had known Gu Lingyao since they were young. The 2 of them could be said to be childhood sweethearts. However, Gu Lingyao never looked at Wang Huan because she knew that although Wang Huan looked arrogant and overbearing on the surface, he was actually a delivery man who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Gu Lingyao naturally wouldn't take a fancy to such a man. Gu Lingyao even despised Wang Huan. However, Wang Huan's grandfather was still the great elder of the Tianqi sect. Using his grandfather's identity, Wang Huan could be said to be pestering Gu Lingyao. Especially in the past few years, Wang Huan followed Gu Lingyao like a shadow. In the end, Gu Lingyao had no choice but to say to Wang Huan, "I don't like flowers that grow up in a greenhouse. If you want me to take a fancy to you, fine. Go out and train yourself. Come back to me when you've truly grown up." Gu Lingyao let Wang Huan go out to train alone. However, Gu Lingyao didn't believe that Wang Huan would change. She only did this to get rid of this annoying fly. Indeed, as Gu Lingyao thought, Wang Huan didn't change much after 2 years of training. However, Gu Lingyao didn't know that the Wang Huan standing in front of him was no longer the real Wang Huan. After not seeing each other for 2 years, Xiao Chen's indifference made Gu Lingyao and the other 3 surprised. What was going on? In just 2 years, Wang Huan had become so indifferent towards Gu Lingyao? Xiao Chen felt strange, but he felt wronged. He really didn't know about the relationship between Wang Huan and Gu Lingyao. Moreover, in Xiao Chen's opinion, although Gu Lingyao was good-looking, she was still inferior to Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers. Therefore, when facing Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen naturally didn't pay much attention to her. But who would have thought that such a small change would make Gu Lingyao, Gu Qi, and the other 3 people feel very confused. Gu Qi looked at Xiao Chen with a strange gaze. After a while, he smiled faintly. "Wang Huan, it seems that you haven't wasted these 2 years. Your cultivation has already broken through to the beginner Dao querying realm." With Gu Qi's eyesight, he naturally saw through Xiao Chen's cultivation realm. However, he didn't see through Xiao Chen's disguise technique. This made Xiao Chen feel relieved. After all, Gu Qi was a sage-to-be expert. Who knew if he would see through anything? Seeing that Gu Qi didn't see through anything, Xiao Chen cupped his hands again and said, "Thank you for your compliment, sect leader. I should have made some progress in these 2 years." Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't look proud at all. It was as if a breakthrough in cultivation was an extremely normal thing. A strange look flashed across Gu Qi's eyes again. According to Gu Qi's understanding of Wang Huan, if he had praised him like this in the past, Wang Huan would have lost his sense of direction, let alone be as calm as he was now. Gu Qi nodded with satisfaction. In Gu Qi's opinion, these 2 years of experience had indeed brought great benefits to Wang Huan. Compared to 2 years ago, Wang Huan's temperament and the feeling he gave off now made Gu Qi suddenly have a whole new level of respect for him. Gu Qi was very satisfied with Wang Huan's change. On the other side, Gu Lingyao was looking at Wang Huan curiously with her beautiful eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that his appearance hadn't changed much, Gu Lingyao would even suspect that the person standing in front of her was actually Wang Huan. This was because they were simply 2 different people. Compared to the past, the Wang Huan standing in front of her now made Gu Lingyao's heart flutter for some reason. She couldn't describe the feeling, but she couldn't help but be attracted to the Wang Huan in front of her. It was still the same face, but the feeling he gave off was completely different. He was otherworldly, confident, and indifferent. From the moment he entered the courtyard until now, Wang Huan's face didn't have the slightest emotional fluctuation. It was the same even when he was facing her father, the sect master of the Tianqi sect. Xiao Chen looked at Gu Lingyao curiously, but he didn't care at all. At this moment there was only one thought in Xiao Chen's mind, and that was to quickly deal with Gu Qi in front of him so that he could think of the next step of his plan. After asking Xiao Chen a few questions out of concern, Gu Qi didn't have any suspicions about Xiao Chen from the beginning to the end. Obviously, he had completely treated Xiao Chen as Wang Huan. At the same time, Gu Qi was sincerely happy about Wang Huan's improvement after 2 years. "All right, you must be tired from the long journey. Go and rest early. Don't forget that the sect's internal selection is in 2 days. Don't embarrass your grandfather at that time," Gu Qi said to Xiao Chen after a series of questions. Hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Qin cupped his hands and replied, "If that's the case, I'll take my leave first." He understands etiquette, knows when to advance and retreat, has an extraordinary way of talking, and has a firm mind. Wang Huan has really changed a lot in the past 2 years. I wonder what he has experienced in the past 2 years. Perhaps he has suffered a lot. Gu Qi muttered to himself as he watched Xiao Chen's departing figure. Just as Gu Qi was evaluating Xiao Chen, Gu Lingyao stood up and said, "Father, I also want to leave. You guys can chat among yourselves." Without waiting for Gu Qi's reply, Gu Lingyao ran out of the courtyard by herself. Looking at his daughter's back, Gu Qi shook his head helplessly with a bitter smile. He naturally knew what Gu Lingyao was going to do. After leaving Gu Qi's place, Xiao Qin exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Facing a half-saint expert was really stressful. Fortunately, he had successfully passed. Just as Xiao Chen was about to return and chase him out, he suddenly heard Gu Lingyao's voice from behind. "Wang Huan, wait a minute." After following closely behind Xiao Chen heard Gu Lingyao's words and stopped in his tracks. He looked at Gu Lingyao, collected his thoughts, and said in a calm tone, "Junior sister, is something the matter?" Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao was taken aback at first, but she quickly pretended to be calm and said, "Nothing much. I haven't seen you for 2 years, and wanted to have a chat with you. After all, it was because of me that you left the Equal Sky sect back then." Gu Lingyao was even more curious about Xiao Chen's calm and indifferent attitude. At the same time, she felt a little uncomfortable. When she thought of how Wang Huan had pestered her before, but now he was so indifferent, Gu Lingyao felt very uncomfortable. A little girl's temperament was born. Gu Lingyao thought to herself, "Is he deliberately distancing himself from me? That must be it. He wants to use this to attract my attention. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 429. He didn't know that his unintentional action had caused Gu Lingyao to have so many thoughts and suspicions. To be honest, Xiao Chen really wasn't interested in Gu Lingyao. When he heard that Gu Lingyao wanted to talk to him, Xiao Chen felt helpless. He really didn't want to interact too much with these people. After all, his current identity was Wang Huan. Although this guy had left the sect for 2 years, the more he talked, the higher the possibility of him being exposed. He wanted to reject Gu Lingyao, but looking at her, she obviously wouldn't leave easily if she didn't have a good talk with him today. Once Xiao Chen was targeted by such a woman, it would be difficult for him to carry out his subsequent actions. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen finally chose to agree. He looked at Gu Lingyao indifferently and said, "Junior sister, what do you want to say? Just say it directly." He wanted to get rid of Gu Lingyao quickly. However, just as Xiao Chen finished speaking, an untimely sneer was heard. "Oh, I heard that junior brother Wang Huan has returned. I didn't expect him to start pestering junior sister as soon as he came back. It seems that junior brother Wang Huan hasn't changed much in these 2 years." Following the voice, a feminine-looking Tianqi sect disciple strode over. Seeing this person, before Xiao Chen could say anything, Gu Lingyao had already said coldly, "Senior brother Fang Yuan, what are you doing here?" The young man was called Fang Yuan, the grandson of the second elder. He and Wang Huan could be said to be sworn enemies since young. Not only did the two of them like Gu Lingyao at the same time, but because of their respective grandfathers, their families were also at loggerheads. Thinking about it, Wang Huan's grandfather was the great elder of the Tianqi sect, while Fang Yuan's grandfather was the second elder of the Tianqi sect. Both of them had a good say in the Tianqi sect. Therefore, the power struggle between the two elders had never stopped. It was also because of their grandfathers that Wang Huan and Fang Yuan didn't see eye to eye since young. Moreover, as they grew older, their relationship worsened. It was basically to the point where one of them would die. However, compared to Wang Huan, Fang Yuan was obviously more ruthless. To put it bluntly, Wang Huan was a standard playboy, while Fang Yuan was a ruthless person. Therefore, Wang Huan had always been at a disadvantage in the battle with Fang Yuan. Knowing what kind of person Fang Yuan was very clear, Gu Lingyao didn't treat him well at all. This was because Gu Lingyao knew that people like Wang Huan was a little arrogant, but in fact, he wasn't a bad person. Fang was different. This person was too dangerous and ruthless. So, Fang Yuan was different. Fang was too Fang. B. Gu Lingyao shouted coldly. Hearing this, Fang Yuan didn't care. Instead, he smiled and said, "Junior sister, what's wrong with you? I'm just here to see junior brother Wang Huan." Fang Yuan didn't show any signs of anger because of Gu Lingyao's shout. As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes locked onto Xiao Chen. There was a flash of killing intent in his eyes. Xiao Chen's face darkened when he caught the killing intent in Fang Yuan's eyes. This guy wants to kill me? Fang Yuan's killing intent made Xiao Chen certain that this guy wanted to kill him. No, it shouldn't be him, but Wang Huan. However, because Xiao Chen was impersonating Wang Huan, Fang Yuan locked his killing intent on him. He should be Wang Huan's enemy. Now, Xiao Chen was obviously using Wang Huan as a scapegoat. He felt a little helpless, but it was understandable. After all, he was impersonating Wang Huan. It was normal for him to use Wang Huan as a scapegoat. Xiao Chen didn't care about Fang Yuan's killing intent. He smiled faintly and said, "You want to kill me?" As soon as Xiao Chen said this, Fang Yuan and Gu Lingyao's faces changed. Gu Lingyao was surprised, while Fang Yuan's face darkened. 2 years later, Fang Yuan thought of many possibilities when she met Wang Huan again. However, she didn't expect Wang Huan to be so calm. Moreover, he directly said what she was thinking. He hit the nail on the head and didn't leave any face for her. Looking at Xiao Chen, Fang Yuan also noticed the difference. In 2 years, Wang Huan was completely different from before. Although Wang Huan didn't show it when he was facing her, Fang Yuan was sure that Wang Huan was afraid of her. In Fang Yuan's opinion, Wang Huan was just a paper tiger. He relied on his grandfather's name to flaunt his power in Tianqi sect. Therefore, Fang Yuan had never taken Wang Huan seriously. However, it seemed that Wang Huan had been reborn after 2 years of experience. Fang Yuan could clearly feel that Wang Huan wasn't pretending to be indifferent to her. In other words, Wang Huan didn't care about her at all. Fang Yuan narrowed her eyes and looked coldly at Xiao Chen. At the same time, Xiao Chen didn't avoid Fang Yuan's gaze and said indifferently, "I advise you not to take action. Otherwise, you'll be the one at a disadvantage." His tone was still indifferent and calm. He didn't take Fang Yuan seriously at all. Hearing this, even with Fang Yuan's temperament, she was furious. She immediately shouted coldly, "Wang Huan, you're courting death." The person who couldn't even take one blow from her back then actually dared to talk to her like this. Fang Yuan was furious. She took a step forward and threw out a punch. In front of Gu Lingyao, Fang Yuan naturally couldn't kill Xiao Chen. However, she could still teach him a lesson. Fang Yuan sneered and thought to herself, "Trash will always be trash. Do you think that you can intimidate me by pretending to be indifferent and calm? I'll make you reveal your true colors with one punch." Fang Yuan felt that Xiao Chen's performance was just a facade. However, this thought only existed for a second before it disappeared. In the face of Fang Yuan's attack, before Gu Lingyao could say anything to stop it, Xiao Chen had already pointed his finger. He didn't have any intention of dodging or making any other movements. He simply pointed his finger. Seeing that Xiao Chen wanted to block her punch with just one finger, Fang Yuan was even more furious. She increased the strength of her fist. However, Fang Yuan didn't know that to Xiao Chen, her punch was like a paper tiger. It was full of flaws. Using the Chun Jun sword finger, a golden sword radiance flashed past. Then, a scream came from Fang Yuan's mouth. There was a bloody hole in her fist that went all the way to her shoulder. Fang Yuan hugged her arm and knelt down in front of Xiao Qin in pain. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 430. Fang Yuan's full-powered punch was broken with a single finger. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. From Xiao Qian's attack to Fang Yuan's scream, Gu Lingyao had no time to react at all. Fang Yuan, including the dead Wang Huan, were all at the beginning of the Dao querying realm. They seemed to be at the same level as Xiao Qian, but the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. The reason was simple. Xiao Qian's cultivation was achieved step by step. Whether it was his foundation or comprehension, they were all honed by himself. Wang Huan and Fang Yuan's cultivation was achieved through the accumulation of elixirs. Using elixirs to achieve cultivation was like a house without a foundation. It looked majestic, but in reality, it would collapse at the slightest touch. It was impossible for a true heaven's pride to use pills to increase their cultivation. If they did so, it would only damage their foundation. How could a true heaven's pride do such a stupid thing in exchange for their future? It was also because of this reason that Fang Yuan was no match for Xiao Qian even though they were at the same cultivation level. He couldn't even block a single finger from Xiao Qian. He knelt in front of Xiao Qian and clutched his right arm tightly. Streams of blood dripped down his arm. Xiao Qian looked down at Fang Yuan and said indifferently, "I've said it before. If we fight, you'll be the one at a disadvantage." Xiao Qian was not bothered by the fact that he was able to defeat Fang Yuan with just one finger. To Xiao Qian, such a person was but an ant. Even if his cultivation was at the same level as his, he was still an ant because his cultivation did not belong to him at all. Hearing Xiao Qian's words, Fang Yuan's face flushed red. It was unknown whether he was angry or ashamed. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How could he have imagined that he would not be able to withstand a single blow from Wang Huan? Wang Huan had never been his opponent in the past. In just 2 years, Wang Huan's strength had already grown to such an extent? Unable to accept the reality in front of his eyes, Gu Lingyao was also shocked and stood rooted to the ground. If Xiao Qian gave Gu Lingyao a feeling of doubt at first, then he was completely shocked now. He had mixed feelings in his heart, but Xiao Qian didn't care about it. She ignored Fang Yuan's glare, which seemed as if she wanted to swallow her whole. After all, a glare could not kill. She turned to Gu Lingyao and smiled. "Junior sister, let's talk another day. It's been a long journey, and I'm indeed a little tired today." He could use this opportunity to get rid of Gu Lingyao. With that, Xiao Qian turned and left without waiting for Gu Lingyao's reply. It wasn't until Xiao Qian's figure disappeared in front of them that Gu Lingyao slowly came back to his senses. He glanced at Fang Yuan, who was still bleeding profusely, and then looked in the direction Xiao Qian had left. Gu Lingyao muttered softly with a face full of surprise. Can a person really change so much in 2 years? Until now, Gu Lingyao still couldn't accept everything in front of her. It was really too shocking. Gu Lingyao knew very well what kind of person Wang Huan was. He was a living paper tiger, a hedonistic son of a rich family who bullied the weak and feared the strong. But now, such a hedonistic son of a rich family had transformed into an existence that could suppress Fang Yuan with a raise of his hand. Xiao Qian didn't think too much about how much shock he had given to Gu Lingyao and Fang Yuan. The reason why Xiao Qian took action was because Fang Yuan was courting death. Even until the end, Xiao Qian didn't know Fang Yuan's identity, let alone that Fang Yuan was the second elder's grandson. Returning to his residence alone, Xiao Qian realized that there were many areas where his plan didn't work, especially after arriving at the Tianqi sect's encampment. The biggest problem was that even though Xiao Qian was impersonating Wang Huan, he didn't know anything about the Tianqi sect. This wouldn't do. If this went on, he would definitely give himself away after a long time. Sitting cross-legged on the cattail hassock in the room, Xiao Qian muttered to himself after secretly pondering for a while. It seems that I still have to familiarize myself with the Tianqi sect situation as soon as possible, especially regarding Wang Huan. If you wanted to impersonate someone, you had to at least understand that person. This was Xiao Chen's current priority. He had to understand Wang Huan as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to get through the Tianqi sect. After making up his mind, Xiao Chen began to take action that night. He already had a rough plan in his heart. If he wanted to understand Wang Huan, he naturally had to go through the people around him. Therefore, Xiao Chen's first target was the 2 Tianqi sect disciples who had been following him from Lu City. He took the initiative to invite the 2 of them over for a drink. In the face of Xiao Chen's invitation, the 2 of them naturally wouldn't refuse. In fact, they were extremely excited. The news of Xiao Chen defeating Fang Yuan with a single finger during the day had already spread throughout the Tianqi sect. All the disciples were dumbfounded when they heard the news of Wang Huan's return after 2 years. Even the sect master, Gu Qi, exclaimed in surprise after hearing the news. "Brother Chen, you're really strong. What exactly has this kid experienced in the past 2 years? He defeated Fang Yuan with a single finger. In the Tianqi sect, there aren't more than a handful of people who can do this. Although Fang Yuan was a paper tiger, it wasn't an easy task to defeat him with a single finger. First of all, disciples of the same age as Fang Yuan often had cultivation levels that were far inferior to him. Therefore, Fang Yuan was already in an invincible position just by relying on his cultivation level. There were only a handful of people who could cultivate to the Dao querying realm at Fang Yuan's age without relying on elixirs in the Zhengtianqi sect. Therefore, Gu Qi was shocked that Xiao Chen could do this. Xiao Chen didn't know that even Gu Qi was shocked because of him. At this moment, he was drinking happily with the 2 Tianqi sect disciples. Of course, the drinking was fake. Xiao Chen's real goal was to get the information he needed from the 2 of them. They drank until late at night. In the end, Xiao Chen personally sent the 2 of them out of the small courtyard. After sending the 2 of them away, Xiao Chen returned to his room and secretly circulated his spiritual energy. The smell of alcohol on his body quickly evaporated. At Xiao Chen's level, it was basically impossible for him to get drunk unless he wanted to. His mind was clear. Recalling the information he got from the 2 of them, Xiao Chen had a certain understanding of Wang Huan. Xiao Chen also completely understood the matter regarding Fang Yuan and Gu Lingyao. He shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. This Wang Huan is really a talent. However, Fang Yuan and Gu Lingyao are now troublesome. After today's incident, the 2 of them have probably already set their sights on me. Forget it, let's not talk about this for now. Anyway, I must register for the sect's internal selection in 2 days. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 431. Xiao Chen already had a general understanding of Wang Huan. He didn't know that Gu Lingyao was the woman that Wang Huan had always adored. After knowing this, he quickly realized that Gu Lingyao would be even more curious about him since he had defeated Fang Yuan with 1 finger. This was really troublesome for him. After all, he wasn't the real Wang Huan. Xiao Chen felt somewhat helpless about Gu Lingyao. After all, there was always someone watching you. This wasn't the result that Xiao Chen wanted because it would be easy to be exposed. He thought of killing Gu Lingyao directly. However, Xiao Chen dispelled this idea in the end. It wasn't because Gu Lingyao was a beautiful woman that he couldn't do it. Xiao Chen wasn't the kind of person who couldn't move when he saw a woman. The reason why he gave up the idea of killing Gu Lingyao was entirely because of Gu Lingyao's identity. Gu Lingyao was Gu Qi's daughter. Moreover, she was the only daughter. Gu Qi only had 1 child. Therefore, if Gu Lingyao was killed, Gu Qi's reaction would be obvious. He would definitely investigate thoroughly. Xiao Chen was naturally more willing to face Gu Lingyao than Gu Qi, who was a semi-sage expert, because she was easier to deal with. Since he couldn't kill Gu Lingyao, he couldn't think of a good way to deal with it. He could only deal with it as it came. He stopped thinking about Gu Lingyao and Fang Yuan. For the time being, he couldn't do anything about them. He couldn't kill them either. Xiao Chun had to put this matter at the bottom of his heart and think about other problems. According to the information obtained when he was drinking with those two people, the two sects' grand meeting would be held in the imperial palace of the Tianlang Empire. At that time, not only would the two sects' higher-ups appear, but the emperor of the Tianlang Empire, the four great princes, and other dignitaries of the empire would also be present. After receiving such news, Xiao Chen's first thought was to attend the two sects' meeting. Although attending the two sects' meeting would undoubtedly increase the possibility of him being exposed, it was also the best way to get close to the Bloodwolf King. Moreover, Xiao Chen had to appear as Wang Huan in the grand meeting of the two sections. Only by fully displaying his impressive combat strength and achievements could he attract the attention of the Bloodwolf King. There was no doubt that Xiao Chen's idea was very dangerous, but it was also the best way. After thinking about it secretly, Xiao Chen decided to participate in the two sects' grand meeting without much hesitation. However, before that, he still needed to pass the internal selection of the Tianqi sect. Of course, this was not a problem for Xiao Chen at all. There might be Heaven's Prides in the Tianqi sect, and there might even be a Heaven's Pride king. However, even so, Xiao Chen was not afraid. At most, they would be on par with him. Xiao Chen had yet to meet someone who could defeat him among his peers. Even the core disciples of the Windless Sacred Sect, Yang Heng and Wang Huan, were only on par with him. Therefore, passing the internal selection of the Tianqi sect was not a problem for Xiao Chen. After making up his mind, Xiao Chen began to cultivate. Although he was now in a tiger's den, he could not neglect his daily cultivation. This had already become a habit for Xiao Chen. Now that he needed to conceal himself, it would be better for him to appear as natural as possible so that it would be less likely for others to discover any clues. A night of cultivation passed very quickly. The next morning, Xiao Chen called the two Tianqi sect disciples from last night and asked them to register him for the internal selection of the sect tomorrow. Hearing that Xiao Chen was going to participate in the internal selection of the sect tomorrow, the two disciples said excitedly, "Senior brother Wang Huan is also going to participate in the two sects' grand meeting. That's great. This time, senior brother will definitely be able to make a name for himself." In just a few days, the two of them were completely convinced by Xiao Chen. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and waved his hand to signal the two of them to leave. Only then did the two of them happily went to register Xiao Chen. The matter of registration had been settled. The next step was to wait for the selection to begin tomorrow. However, as the saying goes, whatever one is afraid of will happen. As expected, not long after the two disciples left, Gu Lingyao came uninvited. Wang Huan. Gu Lingyao skipped into the courtyard as if it was her own home. Seeing Xiao Chen practicing his swordsmanship, Gu Lingyao shouted with a smile. Looking at the smiling Gu Lingyao, one had to admit that this Gu Lingyao was indeed good-looking. If it was the real Wang Huan, he would definitely be overjoyed to see Gu Lingyao, who took the initiative to visit. Unfortunately, the current Wang Huan was disguised by Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen couldn't help but feel helpless about the arrival of Gu Lingyao. He really didn't want to have too much contact with Gu Lingyao. However, looking at the current situation, this Gu Lingyao was obviously going to waste her time with him. Looking at Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Junior sister, you're here so early. Is something the matter? Why, can't I come if there's nothing? Or do you not welcome me?" Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao sat down on the stone stool beside Xiao Chen and said with a spurious smile. Gu Lingyao was very curious about Xiao Chen, who was disguised as Wang Huan, which was why she came uninvited early in the morning. Facing Gu Lingyao's gaze, Xiao Chen pondered for a moment and thought that it was better not to get entangled with this lass. Then, Xiao Chun sat down opposite Gu Lingyao and said with a serious expression, "Junior sister, actually, I met a girl I liked when I was out alone for the past 2 years. So, in the past." He chose to tactfully reject Gu Lingyao. Of course, these words were made up by Xiao Chun. His purpose was to tell Gu Lingyao that he was no longer the Wang Huan from 2 years ago. He used to pester her, but now, he had a girl he liked. He found an excuse for his change. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao wasn't bothered at all. Instead, she asked curiously, "Senior brother Wang Huan, do you think 2 years can really make a person change so much?" While speaking, Gu Lingyao's eyes flashed with a mischievous glint. Upon seeing this, Xiao Chun cursed in his heart. What a mischievous lass! This lass came early in the morning just to get information from me. He was speechless, but his expression didn't change at all as he said, "Junior sister, it's not just time that makes a person change. Experience is more important. Although 2 years is short, after experiencing so many things, the changes will naturally be great." Facing Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chun didn't dare to be careless. This lass was very cunning. After 2 whole hours, Xiao Chun finally managed to deal with Gu Lingyao. However, before she left, Gu Lingyao, who had already walked out of the courtyard, suddenly turned around and smiled. "Senior brother Wang Huan, you're actually really bad at lying. You said that you already have a woman outside. You lied to me, right? Although I don't know why you lied to me, to be honest, I don't hate the current senior brother Wang Huan, hee. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 432. Before she left, Gu Lingyao suddenly said such a sentence. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Lingyao stuck out her tongue at Xiao Chun mischievously. Then, she ran away like a wisp of smoke. Looking at Gu Lingyao's departing figure, Xiao Chun was stunned at first, but then he shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. This little girl was really clever. Although he had performed perfectly, it was obvious that she had seen some clues. However, this little girl should not have any doubts about his identity. She still believed that he was Wang Huan. As long as his identity was not exposed, Xiao Chun could accept it. However, he must be careful when he interacted with this little girl in the future. He did not know what was wrong with this little girl. Her intuition was simply too sharp. Even Tianfeng Xingzong's Yang Heng was not as good as her. It should be known that Yang Heng was a core disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. Although his combat strength was not strong, his perceptive ability was unusually sharp. It was precisely because of this that Yang Heng was promoted to a core disciple by Tianfeng Xingzong. Her perceptive ability was even stronger than Yang Heng's. This little girl, Gu Lingyao, made Xiao Chun a little surprised. His vigilance towards Gu Lingyao increased by another level. He had no choice. This little girl was really too clever. Moreover, her background was even more extraordinary. After all, she had a half-saint cultivation father. After Xiao Chun sent Gu Lingyao away with great difficulty, Fang Yuan's residence was injured by Xiao Chun yesterday. Therefore, Fang Yuan naturally could not participate in the sect's internal selection tomorrow. As a result, this grand meeting of the two sects obviously had no fate with him. However, even if Fang Yuan participated, he would only be a decoration. His strength was obvious. The hatred in his heart was awe-inspiring. At this time, in front of Fang Yuan, the second elder was sitting on a chair, listening to Fang Yuan's continuous crying. The content was very simple. It was nothing more than revenge, and killing Wang Huan. As Fang Yuan's grandfather and the second elder of Tianqi sect, he had followed Gu Qi to the Tianlang Empire. He had already known that Fang Yuan was injured by Xiao Chun. After Fang Yuan finished crying, the second elder slowly opened his eyes and shouted with a face full of anger. "You still have the face to complain to me? Wang Huan was no match for you in the past. But now, a finger is enough to seriously injure you. I have already seen your wound last night. It can be said that Wang Huan has already shown mercy. Otherwise, do you think that your arm can be saved? You are simply trash. After this grand meeting of the two sects, you will be like Wang Huan and go out to gain experience alone. When can you grow up? When can you return to the Tianqi sect? When Fang Yuan was seriously injured, the second elder was naturally angry. However, this anger was not only because of Xiao Chen, but also because of his grandson's incompetence. In the whole Tianqi sect, the matter of the great elder and second elder fighting for power was already known to everyone. Originally, Fang Yuan could have asked Wang Huan to suppress him. But now, after 2 years, the situation had completely reversed. Angry at Fang Yuan's incompetence, the second elder had also decided to let her be like Wang Huan and go out to gain experience alone. When she heard her grandfather's words, Fang Yuan's complexion immediately turned pale. However, it was obvious that her grandfather had already made up his mind. After berating Fang Yuan, the second elder said coldly, "You go back and recuperate. After the grand meeting of the two sects ends, you will scram out of the Tianqi sect. Of course, I have already made arrangements for Wang Huan's matter. In the sect selection tomorrow, Cheng Yu will definitely take revenge for you." When she heard the second elder's words, Fang Yuan was immediately delighted. It turned out that her grandfather had already made preparations. This Cheng Yu was her grandfather's direct disciple. In the Tianqi sect, his strength was enough to be ranked in the top 5. With him making a move, he would definitely be able to ruthlessly deal with Wang Huan. Unaware that the second elder had already made a move on him, he cultivated in his residence peacefully. The next morning, Xiao Chen changed into a set of clean clothes and walked out of the courtyard. Today was the day of the Tianqi sect's internal selection. All the people who had signed up would go through the selection to obtain the qualifications to participate in the grand meeting of the two sections. In total, there were close to 100 Tianqi sect disciples who had signed up. Furthermore, these close to 100 people were all outstanding talents within the Tianqi sect. It could be said that all of them were geniuses. There were even quite a number of geniuses among them. Among these close to 100 people, there were only 5 spots to participate in the grand meeting. In other words, among the close to 100 people, only 5 would be able to stand out. One could imagine how intense the competition would be. Xiao Chen walked towards the martial arts stage slowly. For today's selection, the Tianqi sect had already built a martial arts stage. He walked all the way to the backyard of the residence. At this moment, the backyard had already been transformed into a temporary martial arts stage. In the middle there was a huge stage. Around it, there were already a lot of disciples gathered. In front of the stage, there were 3 chairs arranged in a straight line. Very obviously, these 3 chairs were for Guqi, the second elder, and the third elder. For the sect's internal selection, the participants were all the genius disciples of the Tianqi sect. As such, Guqi and the other 2 would naturally appear. Just as Xiao Chen walked into the martial arts stage, those disciples who were familiar with Xiao Chen also went up one after another to greet him respectfully. Regarding this, Xiao Chen nodded his head slightly along the way. Along the way to the edge of the stage, for a moment, countless gazes were locked onto him. These gazes were filled with curiosity and bewilderment. Very obviously, the majority of the disciples were very interested in Xiao Chen. In just 2 years, the once hedonistic young master had really grown to the extent that he was rumored to be? He almost crippled Fang Yuan with a single finger? Xiao Chen ignored the gazes of the crowd. As he waited quietly, Guqi and the other 2 arrived as scheduled. Sitting on the chair in the middle, the second elder and the third elder sat on both sides. Sweeping his gaze across the numerous disciples, Guqi said indifferently, "The sect's internal selection will now begin. Everyone should know the rules. The final 5 winners will represent the Tianqi sect to participate in the two sects' grand meeting this time." Following Guqi's words, A Tianqi sect deacon with a cultivation of the Tao transformation realm walked onto the stage and casually said 2 names. Immediately after, 2 disciples from the crowd leaped onto the stage and the battle began. The rules of the Tianqi sect's internal selection weren't complicated. All the disciples who signed up would fight in pairs. The winner would advance to the next round, while the loser would be directly eliminated. When the final 5 people were left, they would obtain the qualifications to participate in the 2 sects' grand meeting. Of course, this battle list was naturally arranged by Guqi and the rest. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for 2 strong disciples to clash in the first few rounds. Of course, there was no lack of dark horses appearing. However, overall, Guqi and the rest's arrangement was considered fair and just. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 433. The first battle between the 2 disciples broke out very quickly. Xiao Qin lost interest with just a glance. There was no other reason other than the fact that both of them were too weak. They were merely at the heaven tier, and their combat strength was nothing special. Although they could be considered geniuses, there was still a big gap between them and the heavens chosen. Geniuses might be very impressive in the eyes of ordinary people, but as the saying goes, the world you see depends on the height you stand at. In the eyes of ordinary people, geniuses were already unreachable existences. However, in Xiao Qian's eyes, geniuses were no different from ants. This was because Xiao Qian was the king of geniuses. Using the eyes of a king of geniuses to judge geniuses would naturally result in such an outcome. The battle between the 2 on the stage was extremely intense. Xiao Qian, who was below the stage, was a little bored. This kind of battle did not attract him at all. It was really boring. In the end, Xiao Qian simply went to a big tree in the corner of the courtyard. With his back against the tree trunk, he lazily lay there and basked in the sun. His eyes were slightly closed as he enjoyed the warm sunlight. However, at this moment, an uninvited guest came to Xiao Qian's side. She was wearing a green short skirt and looked very lively. Needless to say, this person was Gu Lingyao. She had been watching Xiao Qian all this while. When she saw Xiao Qian come here alone to bask in the sun, Gu Lingyao quickly followed. She sat down beside Xiao Qian and said with a smile, "Why? Do you think their battle is boring?" Her words spoke Xiao Qian's thoughts. Regarding this, Xiao Qian could only say helplessly, "A little." "What are you doing here?" "Why? You don't like being with me?" Gu Lingyao asked after hearing Xiao Qian's words. She could see that Xiao Qian wanted to keep a respectful distance from her, but Gu Lingyao did not care at all. Seeing this, Xiao Qian simply chose to remain silent. This little girl was a little too smart. It was better to talk less when with her. Seeing that Xiao Qian had chosen to remain silent, Gu Lingyao also minded her own business and lay down beside Xiao Qian. She stretched her body comfortably. Of course, Xiao Qian was obviously not in the mood to appreciate this. Enjoying this rare moment of peace, both of them seemed to have fallen asleep. Needless to say, such a scene actually gave people a very warm feeling. Moreover, for some reason, Gu Lingyao actually felt very comfortable lying beside Xiao Qian. This was a feeling she had never experienced before. Obviously, she had never been so close to any man before, but Gu Lingyao did not resist it. She even liked this feeling a little. Gu Lingyao gradually fell in love with this feeling. However, at this moment, Wang Huan's name suddenly sounded in the arena. Hearing this, Xiao Qian slowly opened his eyes, then got up and walked slowly towards the arena. It was finally his turn. Just as Xiao Qian stepped onto the arena, the nominated disciple of the Tianqi sect also stepped onto the arena. He was at the complete celestial being realm. Looking straight at Xiao Qian in front of him, the disciple said with an extremely serious expression, "Senior brother Wang Huan, I heard that you defeated senior brother Fang Yuan. However, I'm not senior brother Fang Yuan. I won't hold back in this battle." His cultivation was one realm lower than Xiao Qian's, But this disciple did not show the slightest fear. Unlike Fang Yuan and Wang Huan, this disciple's cultivation was painstakingly cultivated by himself. Therefore, even though he was only at the complete celestial being realm, in terms of combat strength, this disciple was obviously much stronger than Fang Yuan. After all, Fang Yuan was just a medicine pot, a paper tiger that could be broken with a poke. He did not show the slightest fear just because Xiao Chen defeated Fang Yuan with a single finger. Hearing this disciple's words, Xiao Chen only said indifferently, "Make your move." This disciple's strength was indeed stronger than Wang Huan and Fang Yuan. However, compared to Xiao Chen, the difference was like heaven and earth. It could be seen that this disciple's combat strength should be at the level of a top Sky Pride. Although he had already stepped into the ranks of Sky Prides, he was still not worth mentioning. Seeing that Xiao Chen did not take him seriously at all, the disciple's face immediately darkened. In an instant, an aura of the complete celestial being realm soared into the sky. Seeing that the battle was about to erupt, this battle naturally attracted the attention of many disciples of the Tianqi sect below. Everyone was discussing softly. "Hey, do you guys think senior brother Wang Huan can win?" It's hard to say. Although senior brother Wang Huan defeated senior brother Fang Yuan with a single finger, we all know how senior brother Fang Yuan reached the beginner Dao querying realm. In terms of combat strength, senior brother Fang Yuan is not even comparable to a martial artist at the complete celestial being realm. Shu, don't talk nonsense. Do you want to die? If senior brother Fang Yuan hears this, you'll have a hard time. Facing the battle that was about to unfold, the crowd discussed softly. As the crowd was talking, the battle broke out. The disciple suddenly jumped up and slammed his palm towards Xiao Chen as he shouted angrily, "Bright light palm!" He immediately used the Middle Earth grade martial skill, Bright Light Palm. Obviously, Xiao Chen's indifference had completely angered this disciple. He wanted to teach Xiao Chen a lesson. A Middle Earth grade martial skill is indeed not bad. However, it's a pity that you're the one using it. It has a lot of flaws, said Xiao Chen nonchalantly as he faced the seemingly powerful Bright Light Palm. His expression did not change in the slightest. The power of the Bright Light Palm was indeed not weak. However, it was a pity that this disciple had only quietly cultivated it to the proficient realm and had yet to reach the perfect realm. Hearing Xiao Chen say that his Bright Light Palm was full of flaws, the disciple's face darkened again. At the same time, he increased the strength in his hand, intending to completely suppress Xiao Chen. Like a giant palm, it pressed down on Xiao Chen violently. Seeing that the palm print was already in front of him, Xiao Chen pointed his finger and instantly used the Chun Jun sword finger. A golden sword light flashed and with the support of the sword essence, it fiercely shot towards the disciple in front of him. The golden sword light flashed, but in a short moment, the Bright Light Palm was directly shattered. Then, the disciple's shoulder was directly pierced by Xiao Chen. All of the disciple's defenses were as fragile as paper under Xiao Chen's finger. He did not have any time to react and was instantly seriously injured by Xiao Chen. His body fell out of the arena violently. There was an eye-catching bloody hole in his right shoulder and blood kept gushing out. It's over. Another finger? How is this possible? In the face of the Bright Light Palm, it was actually broken by a finger. Faced with such a result, everyone present was stunned and their mouths were wide open. If they had previously heard that Xiao Chen had defeated Fang Yuan with a finger, they were still somewhat doubtful. Now they could not believe it. Moreover, the disciple who was fighting with Xiao Chen was obviously stronger than Fang Yuan. Even so, he was still defeated by a finger. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 434. Witnessing it with one's own eyes was always the most shocking. Hearsay was unable to determine how strong a person was. However, witnessing it with one's own eyes was a completely different matter. Many of the disciples looked at Xiao Chen in a daze. Who would have thought that the outcome of the battle would be like this? In a blink of an eye, the outcome of the battle was decided with a single finger. However, as the saying goes, the layman only enjoys the show while the expert observes the skill. While they were still in shock, Gu Lingyao and a few other disciples, as well as Gu Qi and the older generation experts, all of them felt a trace of sharp sword intent from Xiao Chen's finger. Wang Huan, that brat actually managed to grasp sword intent? Gu Qi looked at Xiao Chen in bewilderment as he thought in his heart. It wasn't that there weren't any people who had comprehended the concept of power in the Tianqi sect, but they were extremely rare. As for Wang Huan, he was a hedonistic young master who didn't seek to improve himself. Yet, he had actually comprehended the concept of power. Ignoring everyone's astonishment, Xiao Chen walked down the stage unhurriedly. He walked over to the big tree and lay down. The first round should still take some time. After that, there was nothing else for him to do. Once again, he leaned against the tree trunk and closed his eyes to rest. At the same time, the first round of battle continued. Gradually, those prided kings of the Tianqi sect also started to make their move. Just like Xiao Chen, when facing their opponents, these few prided kings of the Tianqi sect were also able to determine the outcome of their battle with a single move. With regards to these few prided kings of the Tianqi sect, Xiao Chen paid attention to them. There were a total of 3 of them. Other than Gu Lingyao and Qing Yu, there was another person called Chao He who had also reached the level of a prided king. However, just a sect had 3 prided kings. This Tianhe continent wasn't something the Tianqian continent could compare with. Furthermore, this Tianqi sect was just a fake sage clan. Within the sect, there were only half-sages and no true sages. Just the celestial equal sect alone had 3 prided monarchs. It was hard to imagine how many prided monarchs existed in those true saint-rank clans. After observing Gu Lingyao and the other 2, Qing Yu and Chao, he didn't have any outstanding points. They were only able to step into the ranks of the proud kings. There was still some distance between them and Xiao Chen. However, what made Xiao Chen surprised was that he was unable to see through Gu Lingyao. Perhaps it was because she had only used one move, but Xiao Chen was sure that Gu Lingyao was the strongest among the 3 of them. The entire first round lasted for an entire day before it ended. As for Xiao Chen, he had a preliminary understanding of the strength of the celestial equal sect disciples after the first round of battles. To be honest, other than Gu Lingyao, the rest of them were not worth his attention. Even Qing Yu and Chao he were only able to enter Xiao Chen's eyes. After the first round ended, half of the participants were eliminated. After resting for an hour, the second round began. The rules didn't change, but compared to the first round, those who were able to enter the second round were much stronger. Even the weakest among them had already reached the ranks of the peak geniuses. One by one, the names of the disciples were called out. One by one, the battles started. During the second round, Xiao Chen also went up. However, as expected, he still defeated his opponent with a single finger. For the second round, Xiao Chen defeated his opponent with a single finger. However, compared to the first round, Xiao Chen's victory didn't cause the crowd to be surprised like before. Since they already knew of Xiao Chen's strength, they were already mentally prepared for such an outcome. After the second round ended, Xiao Chen once again leaned on the tree trunk to rest. However, what made Xiao Chen feel helpless was that Gu Lingyao was also doing the same thing. Every time after the battle ended, Gu Lingyao would return here and lie down beside Xiao Chen without any pretense. Facing Gu Lingyao's actions, Xiao Chen felt helpless. However, he was also unable to stop it. Fortunately, Gu Lingyao only laid down beside him and didn't continue to trick him. This allowed Xiao Chen to end the battle. Round after round of battles ended. After 4 rounds of battles, Xiao Chen had swept through all of them. No one was a match for Xiao Chen. At the 5th round, which was also the last round, there were only 10 disciples left. In other words, as long as they were able to survive this round, they would be able to obtain the qualifications to participate in the competition. 10 people were going to fight for 5 spots, and the 2 people fighting in the first round surprised everyone. The deacon on the stage shouted loudly, "Let's see who's going to be the next one." 5th round, first battle, Wang Huan vs. Qing Yu. Following the deacon's voice, everyone was stunned. What was going on? Senior brother Wang Huan versus senior brother Qing Yu? The 2 prideful kings were going to clash? With regards to such an arrangement, all of the disciples were shocked. Of course, they didn't know that all of this was secretly arranged by the second elder. When Gu Qi heard the deacon's words, he glanced at the second elder indifferently. It was obvious that he had already guessed something, but he didn't say anything. When Xiao Chen heard his name, he stood up. However, this time Gu Lingyao spoke, "Senior brother Qing Yu is very strong. You be careful." "Stronger than you?" When he heard Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chen smiled as he replied. When he heard Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao was stunned. Meanwhile, Xiao Chen had already walked up to the stage. At the same time, Xiao Chen had also arrived in front of Xiao Chen. Both of them were 5 meters apart. When their eyes met, Qing Yu smiled as he took the initiative to speak. "Junior brother Wang Huan, people always say that a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. Looking at you, it seems to be true. The trash from 2 years ago had actually become like this. However, junior brother has heard of a saying before. That is, even if a crow flies to a branch, it will never become a phoenix." When facing Xiao Chen, Qing Yu did not conceal the disdain in his heart. Although Xiao Chen was impersonating Wang Huan as the grandson of the first elder, Qing Yu was also the direct disciple of the second elder. In addition, Qing Yu was a prideful king. His status was not any lower than Wang Huan's. In fact, it might even be higher. After all, Qing Yu was the real deal and would be the future pillar of Tianqi sect. Xiao Chen's eyes were filled with ridicule. He could feel a faintly discernible killing intent from Qing Yu. Regarding this, Xiao Chen smiled faintly. "Are you here to take revenge for that idiot Fang Yuan?" Previously, he already knew of Qing Yu's identity. He was the direct disciple of the second elder. And at this moment, when Qing Yu revealed his killing intent, Xiao Chen easily guessed that Qing Yu wanted to take revenge for Fang Yuan. Xiao Chen did not intentionally conceal his words. Therefore, everyone present had heard it. When they heard that Qing Yu actually wanted to take revenge for Fang Yuan, all of the disciples present started to discuss in whispers. Regarding this, Qing Yu's complexion sank. He immediately shouted coldly, "Wang Huan, don't talk nonsense. When have I ever said that I wanted to take revenge for junior brother Fang Yuan? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation." Chapter 435. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, a trace of coldness flashed past Qing Yu's eyes. After all, this wasn't something to be proud of. Now that Xiao Chen had pointed it out, how would the disciples below view him and his teacher, the second elder? Sure enough, along with Xiao Chen's words, the disciples below had already started to discuss in whispers. Regarding this, not only Qing Yu, even the eyes of the second elder, who was seated at the highest position, flashed with a trace of coldness. Looking at the gloomy Qing Yu, Xiao Chen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. Subsequently, something that Qing Yu had never expected happened. Xiao Chen turned around and bowed to Gu Qi. "Sect Master, Qing Yu wishes to take revenge for Fang Yuan. Since it's so, disciple would like to change this battle to a life and death battle." Knowing that Qing Yu was here to take revenge for Fang Yuan, Xiao Chen actually took the initiative to change this battle to a life and death battle. In the Tianqi sect, the disciples weren't unfamiliar with life and death battles. After all, there were a lot of disciples in the sect. With so many people, there would definitely be conflict. Furthermore, the Tianqi sect forbade disciples from killing each other privately. Therefore, in order to give the disciples a way to resolve their grievances, the higher-ups of the Tianqi sect had set up a life-and-death battle. Once an irreconcilable conflict appeared between the disciples, one of them would be able to request for a life-and-death battle. After both parties had agreed, the sect would recognize the life-and-death battle. Once the life-and-death battle started, the life and death would be determined by fate. After the battle, no one would be able to pursue the matter. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the sect rules. Of course, if one of them didn't agree to the life-and-death battle, the life-and-death battle wouldn't be established. However, if one didn't dare to accept a life-and-death battle, one would definitely be despised by others. As long as it happened once, one's reputation in the Tianqi sect would be completely ruined and one's status might plummet. Who would have thought that Xiao Chen would propose a life-and-death duel without a word? Moreover, he had directly proposed a life-and-death duel to the sect leader. As soon as Xiao Chen's words came out, the expressions of everyone present changed, and they all sucked in a cold breath. Senior brother Wang Huan must have gone crazy. He merely wanted to take revenge for senior brother Fang Yuan, and he directly requested for a life-and-death battle. I feel that senior brother Wang Huan is too handsome. Look at senior brother Qing Yu's expression. Isn't it as if he had eaten a fly? Upon hearing Xiao Chen's request for a life-and-death duel, the disciples began to discuss among themselves after recovering from their initial shock. However, Qing Yu, who was on the stage, was completely stunned. What kind of situation was this? Did Wang Hu eat explosives? Indeed, he wanted to avenge Fang Yuan, but he didn't have to go so far as to directly engage in a life-and-death battle, right? He didn't expect Xiao Chen to have such a reaction. However, just when Qing Yu was in a daze, Gu Qi's voice sounded. Qing Yu, Wang Huan proposed a life-and-death battle. According to the rules, you have the right to reject it. Now let me ask you, do you agree to Wang Huan's life-and-death battle? Gu Qi was also surprised by Xiao Chen's actions. However, he still followed the sect rules and asked for Qing Yu's opinion. As long as Qing Yu rejected it, the life-and-death battle would naturally be invalid. However, how could Qing Yu possibly refuse? Although he had the right to refuse, in front of everyone, if he were to refuse the life-and-death battle, it would mean that he was afraid of Xiao Chen. How would he be able to raise his head in the heavenly Qi sect in the future? Many things had unwritten rules, and the life-and-death duel in the celestial equal sect also had such a rule. Once someone refused the life-and-death duel, they would be deemed as a coward by all the disciples. Such a person would have a hard time in the celestial equal sect because everyone would look down on them. There was simply no reason for him to refuse. Taking a deep breath, Qing Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. He thought fiercely, Wang Huan, you are simply going too far. Do you think that just because you are the great elder's grandson, I won't dare to kill you? All right, since you are courting death, I shall grant you your wish. Thinking so, Qing Yu looked at Gu Qi and shouted, Sect Master, disciple agrees to junior brother Wang Huan's life-and-death battle. Qing Yu agreed. Regarding this, the disciples did not find it strange. After all, as the proud king of the heavenly Qi sect, it would be strange if Qing Yu did not even have the courage to accept the challenge. Seeing Qing Yu had agreed, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with a trace of a sneer. After that, he looked at Gu Qi without batting an eyelid, waiting for his decision. In fact, there wasn't much to decide. Both parties had already agreed to the life-and-death battle. As such, the sect no longer had any reason to refuse. However, in Gu Qi's opinion, this life-and-death battle was different, because the identity of both parties was not something ordinary disciples could compare to. If either of them were to die, it would be a great loss to the heavenly Qi sect. Therefore, before Gu Qi made his decision, he still spoke out. All right. Since both of you have agreed, this battle can also become a life-and-death battle. But before it starts, I wish to give both of you a chance. Both of you are the most outstanding disciples in my heavenly Qi sect. If either of you were to fall, it would be a great loss to the sect. Therefore, I wish for both of you to think thrice before you act and cancel this life and death battle. To Gu Qi, he did not wish to see a life and death battle between Xiao Chen and Qing Yu, and his words were to give both of them a way out. If both of them were to regret it now, he believed that no one would say anything. After all, even the sect master had spoken out to mediate. However, when he heard Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chen immediately spoke out. Sect master need not speak anymore. Disciple has already made up his mind. This battle must be carried out. Xiao Chen wanted to have a life and death battle with Qing Yu. Hearing what he said, Qing Yu's complexion immediately changed. He thought, this Wang Huan is simply too much. If he wants to fight, then let's fight. Does he really think that I'm afraid of him? Anger welled up in his heart. Qing Yu also shouted out coldly, Sect Master, disciple is also the same. This battle must be carried out. I hope Sect Master will agree to it. Both of them insisted on having a life and death battle. When he saw the situation, Gu Qi shook his head helplessly. He immediately said, all right. Since both of you are so insistent, then this battle shall be changed to a life and death battle. According to the sect rules, no matter what the result is, no one is allowed to pursue the matter. Otherwise, the punishment will be dealt with according to the sect rules. Gu Qi spoke out. His last sentence was obviously directed to the second elder and the great elder who was not present. After all, Xiao Qin and Qing Yu were the great elder's grandson and the second elder's disciple. Along with Gu Qi's words, the battle between Xiao Qin and Qing Yu had also turned into a life and death battle. With regards to this, many of the disciples who were present started to get interested. After all, a life and death battle was definitely more exciting than a battle that would stop at a certain point. Looking at Xiao Chen, who was on the stage, Gu Lingyao, who was originally leaning on the tree trunk with his eyes closed, had unknowingly appeared beside the stage. His eyes flashed with a strange color. Just because of a disagreement, you actually applied for a life and death battle. Senior brother Wang Huan, when did you become so tyrannical? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 436. It had to be said that when facing Qing Yu, Xiao Chen's performance was very tyrannical. Just because Qing Yu wanted to take revenge for Fang Yuan, Xiao Chen immediately applied for a death match. Everyone felt that Xiao Chen's action was too tyrannical. However, no one knew that the reason why Xiao Chen applied for a death match was because of his future plans. He had already made up his mind to display his brilliance in the grand meeting of the two sections. In this way, killing Qing Yu could also be considered as a warm-up in advance. Secondly, through Qing Yu, he could also warn the others in Tianqi sect, especially Fang Yuan. Although he did not have much interaction with Fang Yuan, even if Xiao Chen used his toes to think, he knew that Fang Yuan was definitely a narrow-minded person. And to deal with such a person, the only way was to beat him until he was afraid. Only then would he stop. Otherwise, Fang Yuan would keep on staring at him. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of a thief stealing, but be afraid of a thief remembering. There was already a Gu Lingyao that he could not deal with. Xiao Chen did not wish to have a Fang Yuan hiding beside him. Therefore, borrowing Qing Yu's life, Xiao Chen wanted to send a message to Fang Yuan. The death match had already been decided. Immediately, the deacon who was in charge of acting as the referee also consciously walked down the stage. A death match did not need a referee. It only depended on the life and death. On the stage, only Xiao Chen and Qing Yu were left. Their eyes met. Facing Xiao Chen, Qing Yu took the initiative to make a move. In the previous battle, Xiao Chen had already displayed his absolute strength. No matter who it was, he would be able to defeat them in a single move. However, so what? Qing Yu's strength was not just for show. From the start of the battle until now, Qing Yu had also been able to defeat his opponents in a single move. He chose to take the initiative to make a move. The Tao-querying realm aura soared out from Qing Yu's body. When he felt Qing Yu's aura, Xiao Chen's complexion turned serious. Judging from his aura, this Qing Yu was definitely not someone those ordinary geniuses could compare to. His aura was many times more vigorous than Feng Yuan. Although Feng Yuan's cultivation was also in the Tao-querying realm, it was already mentioned previously that Feng Yuan's cultivation was achieved through the use of pills. It was completely not worth mentioning. As for Qing Yu's cultivation, it was different. He had truly relied on his own hard work to reach where he was now. His foundation was firm and his aura was long and vigorous. His aura erupted. Immediately after, Qing Yu took a step forward. His figure instantly disappeared from his original position. The next moment, he appeared in front of Xiao Chen. He punched out fiercely as he shouted, overturning Ocean Fist, Wang Huan die. In a life-and-death battle, there was no such thing as holding back. Therefore, the moment he made his move, Qing Yu went all out. Facing Qing Yu's fist, Xiao Chen could no longer break it with a single finger. After all, Qing Yu had already reached the level of a proud king. He needed to treat it seriously. Moving his feet, Xiao Chen retreated rapidly. At the same time, he sent out a palm, executing the first layer of the overlapping waves, 100-layered waves. The fist collided with the palm. A muffled boom resounded. The terrifying shockwave engulfed the whole courtyard. When he saw the situation, Gu Qi waved his hand slightly. An indescribable energy instantly enveloped the stage, causing the shockwave from Xiao Chen's fight to be unable to spread out. With a wave of his hand, Gu Qi was able to seal a space. Naturally, the method he used was the power of laws. Half-saint experts had already comprehended the laws. It was just that they had yet to condense a saint body. Therefore, they were called half-saints. With Gu Qi making a move, Xiao Chen's fight was no longer able to affect the outside world. In this way, all the heavenly Qi sect disciples were completely at ease. Immediately after, they stared at the fight on the stage without blinking. Facing Qing Yu's overturning Ocean Fist, Xiao Chen broke it head-on. When he saw the situation, Qing Yu's complexion changed. Xiao Chen's strength had obviously exceeded his expectations. Without any hesitation, the spatial ring on Qing Yu's hand flashed. A pair of black fists appeared in Qing Yu's hand. This was Qing Yu's weapon. It had reached the peak of Earth grade. When he saw Qing Yu had taken out his Earth weapon, Xiao Chen also took out his Scarlet Edge sword. This was the first time Xiao Chen had taken out his Scarlet Edge sword. In the previous few fights, his opponents did not even have the qualifications to make Xiao Chen take out his sword. He already knew that Wang Huan was also a sword cultivator. Therefore, when he took out his Scarlet Edge sword, Xiao Chen did not have any fear. When he saw the Scarlet Edge sword in Xiao Chen's hand, Gu Qi smiled. The sword in Wang Huan's hand is not an ordinary weapon. It is the same as Qing Yu's Black Dragon gloves. It has also reached the peak of Earth grade. With a glance, he was able to tell that the Scarlet Edge sword was not ordinary. However, it was only so. As a half-saint expert, a peak Earth grade weapon was naturally unable to make Gu Qi attach any importance to it. Both of them took out their Earth grade weapons. Immediately after, the two of them started to fight with all their strength. Those weaker disciples were unable to see the movements of Xiao Chen and Wang Huan clearly. Only a few of the stronger disciples were able to see the entire fight. When they saw that the two of them had already fought for hundreds of moves without a victor being decided, a disciple could not help but exclaim, "This Wang Huan's strength is too strong. He is actually able to fight evenly with senior brother Qing Yu. They have already fought for hundreds of moves." After not seeing him for 2 years, Wang Huan seems to have changed into another person. If it was 2 years ago, I'm afraid he would not even be able to receive a single move from senior brother Qing Yu. When facing Qing Yu, Xiao Chen did not show any signs of defeat. This caused everyone to be surprised. However, no one knew that not only did Xiao Chen not show any signs of defeat, in fact, from the start of the fight until now, Xiao Chen had been testing out Qing Yu's strength. It had to be said that Qing Yu's strength had indeed reached the level of a proud king. But in terms of strength, he was about the same as Feng Lingye. However, among all the proud kings in heavenly Qin continent, Feng Lingye's strength was the weakest. Therefore, in Xiao Chen's eyes, Qing Yu was not bad at all. But it was still not enough to contend against him. After grasping Qing Yu's strength, Xiao Chen forced Qing Yu back with a sword and said indifferently, "You only have this bit of ability? If it's like that, you can die now." Being forced back by Xiao Chen and hearing such contemptuous words, Qing Yu was enraged. He shouted angrily, "Wang Huan, don't look down on me. Since you are courting death, don't blame me for it." As he spoke, the aura on Qing Yu's body suddenly surged. At the same time, behind him, the image of a fierce black tiger actually appeared. When the third elder saw the appearance of the fierce black tiger, he couldn't help but exclaim softly, "It's ferocious tiger stampede." He did not expect Qing Yu to be able to execute the ferocious tiger dash. This was Heavenly Qi Sect's sect guarding martial technique. Its grade had reached the high-grade heaven level. In Heavenly Qi Sect, the number of disciples who were able to cultivate the ferocious tiger dash was extremely few. Not only was it because the difficulty of cultivating the ferocious tiger dash was very high, but it was also because Heavenly Qi Sect viewed the ferocious tiger dash with great importance. If one was not a core member, it was impossible for them to have the qualifications to cultivate the ferocious tiger dash. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 437. After executing the ferocious tiger stampede, Qing Yu's aura was raised to the peak. The black tiger behind him was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, as if it would pounce on Xiao Chen at any moment. As a high-grade heaven realm martial technique, there was no need to doubt the might of the ferocious tiger stampede. Furthermore, the ferocious tiger stampede was not an ordinary offensive martial technique, but a movement martial technique. Perhaps it should be said that the ferocious tiger stampede was an offensive movement martial technique. "Wang Huan, go to hell!" Qing Yu shouted coldly as he looked at Xiao Chen. Immediately after, he moved his legs and charged towards Xiao Chen like a ferocious tiger. Once the ferocious tiger stampede was executed, it was like a ferocious tiger descending from the mountain. Not only could it greatly increase the speed of the martial artist, it could also increase the martial artist's attack power. This was the first time he had witnessed the ferocious tiger stampede. At the same time when Qing Yu moved, Xiao Chen's gaze turned serious. Movement martial technique. To be able to possess such an imposing movement martial technique, the ferocious tiger stampede was indeed extraordinary. Not daring to be careless, he quickly retreated. However, compared to Qing Yu, the movement martial technique Xiao Chen had mastered was a lot weaker. It could even be said that in terms of speed, Xiao Chen was already at a disadvantage. What a strong movement martial technique! If only I could cultivate it. As he tried his best to dodge Qing Yu's attack, Xiao Chen coveted the ferocious tiger stampede. A high-grade heaven realm movement martial technique. If he could learn it, the increase in his fighting power would be incomparably huge. Furthermore, the ferocious tiger stampede was not only a movement martial technique, it would also increase his attack power. This was the terrifying aspect of the ferocious tiger stampede. He was extremely interested in the ferocious tiger stampede. However, now was not the time to think about it. After executing the ferocious tiger stampede, Qing Yu had indeed reached a thorny point. Without the ferocious tiger stampede, it wouldn't be too difficult for Xiao Chen to kill Qing Yu. However, it was different now. Borrowing the might of the ferocious tiger stampede, Qing Yu's fighting strength had increased by a lot. This was the valiance of a high-grade heaven realm martial technique. Just by relying on this point, Qing Yu's strength had increased by a large margin. It was impossible for him to rely on his movement technique to dodge Qing Yu's attack. After all, the movement technique that Xiao Chen had grasped was a lot weaker than the ferocious tiger stampede. To be able to persevere until now was already an extremely difficult matter. And this was all thanks to Qing Yu's ferocious tiger stampede being at the initial stage. Otherwise, Xiao Chen's situation would be even more difficult, since he was unable to rely on his speed to evade Qing Yu's attack. He could only face it head-on. Qing Yu chased after Xiao Chen and attacked him again. From the start of the battle until now, this was the first time Qing Yu had gained the upper hand. For a moment, Qing Yu was elated. As he attacked, he shouted coldly, "Ha ha! Wang Huan, aren't you very powerful? Why are you running now?" Qing Yu felt that victory was already within his grasp. However, just as Qing Yu shouted coldly, Xiao Chen, who had always chosen to evade, suddenly turned around. The sword in his hand slashed out fiercely. An invisible sword slashed towards Qing Yu without any sound. Soul slash. Xiao Chen had executed the soul slash at this moment. He basically did not have the slightest bit of defense. Just as Xiao Chen slashed out, Gu Qi, who was sitting on the high seat, was stunned. Following that, he revealed a trace of curiosity. Spiritual attack? Wang Huan actually grasped a spiritual attack. Rode muttered under his breath. In the Tianqian continent there was no such thing as a soul attack technique. However, in the Tianhe continent there was one. However, it was extremely rare. Therefore, even in the Tianhe continent, those who were able to grasp a soul attack technique were extremely rare. Originally, when Qing Yu executed the ferocious tiger dash, Gu Qi felt that Xiao Chen was going to lose. However, who would have thought that Xiao Chen would actually execute a soul attack technique? The invisible sword instantly pierced into Qing Yu's body. Just as Gu Qi was secretly bewildered, on the stage, Qing Yu shrieked miserably. From the outside, it was impossible to see any changes. However, the current Qing Yu was hugging his head with both of his hands. It was as if he was enduring an indescribable pain. On his forehead and neck, green veins were popping out. Of course, this was also because Qing Yu was not prepared for it. When he saw the situation, Xiao Chen would naturally not let go of such a good opportunity. He pointed out his finger and executed the Tai-I sword finger. The thick and solid spiritual energy sword finger shot towards Qing Yu. For a moment, a deathly aura enveloped Qing Yu. Ignoring the pain in his soul, Qing Yu looked at the incoming Tai-I sword finger. The expression on his face changed abruptly. After that, he punched out with both of his fists, intending to use all his strength to block Xiao Chen's attack. He had already lost the initiative. If Qing Yu was more cautious, or if he had grasped a soul defense technique, then Xiao Chen's spiritual slash would not be able to injure him so easily. However, at this very moment, Xiao Chen had already used the spiritual slash to gain the initiative. Currently, if Qing Yu wanted to block the Tai-I sword finger, he could only do it hastily. This way, even if he managed to block it, he would still be severely injured. The Tai-I sword finger was the strongest attack Xiao Chen had grasped. It had already reached the Earth Realm high grade. When the Tai-I sword finger descended, Qing Yu's figure was engulfed by the thick and solid sword finger. The terrifying energy fluctuation was rampant. The killing move had already been executed. However, this was just the beginning. After executing the Tai-I sword finger, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with a hint of decisiveness. The aura on his body rose abruptly as he pointed out his finger once again. It seemed to be a casual move, but from Xiao Chen's expression, it was obvious that this move was extremely difficult for Xiao Chen to execute. Or it could be said that the energy consumption was too great. It was so great that it had already caused Xiao Chen to be unable to endure it. Accompanying Xiao Chen's action, a terrifying aura spread out. Feeling the aura, Gu Qi, who was seated on the high seat, had a slight change in expression. Heaven Realm Martial Technique. This kid has also grasped a Heaven Realm Martial Technique. What Xiao Chen executed was a heaven realm martial technique. It was the fourth finger of the nine heavens sword finger, Ganjiang sword finger. Its grade had reached the heaven realm low grade. After breaking through to the Dao querying realm, Xiao Chen had also started to cultivate the Ganjiang sword finger. However, because the time was too short, Xiao Chen was only able to cultivate it to the initial realm. However, even so, the might of the Ganjiang sword finger was already a lot stronger than the Tai sword finger. The moment the heaven realm martial technique was executed, Qing Yu, who was originally trying his best to resist the Tai sword finger, had his complexion changed as he begged for mercy. Junior brother Wang Huan, he wished for Xiao Chen to be lenient. However, the reply he got was a blood-red sword ray. This sword ray was only as thick as a finger. Just by looking at its appearance, it was inferior to the Tai sword finger. However, from this small blood-red sword ray, a dense deathly aura was emitted out unceasingly. Chapter 438. Just as the Ganjiang sword finger flashed past, the second elder, who was seated to the left of Gu Qi, stood up abruptly as he shouted angrily, "Wang Huan, stop!" As a Dao Emperor realm expert, the second elder was naturally able to tell that when facing Xiao Chen's Ganjiang sword finger, it was impossible for Qing Yu to block it. Previously, the Tai sword finger and soul slash had already caused Qing Yu to be seriously injured. Now, the Ganjiang sword finger was simply a death sentence for Qing Yu. The second elder shouted. Qing Yu was his direct disciple. Furthermore, he was his most accomplished disciple. To watch Qing Yu die in front of him was something the second elder could not do. However, when faced with the second elder's roar, Xiao Chen did not seem to have any intention to pay attention to him. His hand movements did not show any signs of stopping as the blood-red sword ray flashed past. In an instant, it flashed past Qing Yu's forehead. Immediately after, a small red dot could be seen on Qing Yu's forehead as his body unconsciously fell backwards, dead. When facing the second elder's roar, Xiao Chen still did not hesitate to kill Qing Yu. What a joke! How could Xiao Chen possibly listen to the second elder's words? Furthermore, even if he were to let Qing Yu off, would the second elder let him off so easily? Obviously, it was impossible. Since that was the case, he might as well kill Qing Yu and give Fang Yuan a warning to not provoke him again. Staring at Qing Yu's corpse, the second elder's eyes seemed to be about to spurt out fire. At the same time, everyone below the stage seemed to have their necks pinched as they were unable to make any sound. Although they had already determined this battle to be a life-and-death battle, when they saw Qing Yu dying like this, many of the disciples were still unable to accept it. After all, Qing Yu was not an ordinary disciple. He was the genius of the heavenly Qi sect. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief. At the same time, Xiao Chen also looked at the angry second elder. Previously, we had already determined it to be a life-and-death battle. Now that the second elder has reprimanded me, are you trying to disregard the sect rules? You? Wang Huan. Good. Very good. I will remember this. You better be careful, the second elder said coldly after hearing Xiao Chen. Obviously, he hated Xiao Chen to the bone. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about this. After all, he had faced plenty of threats along the way. Xiao Chen said with a cold smile. Second elder, please don't scare me. I'm a timid person. Who knows when I'll apply for another life-and-death battle with the sect. At that time, if that idiot Fang Yuan dies, second elder, please don't blame me. He wasn't afraid of the second elder's threat at all. In fact, Xiao Chen even threatened him in return. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the second elder's face turned even uglier. Many disciples at the side couldn't help but admire Wang Huan. They all thought to themselves, this Wang Huan is simply defying the heavens. He actually dares to threaten the second elder in public. A disciple threatening a powerful elder. This had never happened before. However, when facing Xiao Chen's threat, the second elder had no way to deal with it. Xiao Chen's intention was very clear. I have already killed Qingyu. If you still wish to court death, I can only make a move on Fang Yuan. With the combat strength Xiao Chen had displayed, if he wanted to kill Fang Yuan, it would be an easy task. Furthermore, if Xiao Chen were to apply for a life-and-death battle, the second elder wouldn't be able to interfere. At that time, either Fang Yuan would reject the battle, causing her reputation to go down the drain, or she would be killed by Xiao Chen on the stage. This could be considered as a warning to the second elder. Furthermore, Xiao Chen believed that the second elder was a smart person. At least in the near future, the second elder would not make things difficult for him. This was enough for him. As for the future, Xiao Chen would have long slipped away. What could the second elder do? Sure enough, when the second elder heard what Xiao Chen said, his complexion turned gloomy. However, he didn't say anything as he sat back down on his seat. Currently, it was the time for the two sects to meet. It was obvious that they couldn't cause any trouble. Furthermore, Wang Huan was the great elder's grandson. They couldn't make a move recklessly. Therefore, the second elder chose to endure. In any case, when they returned to the sect, there would be plenty of opportunities. He planned to return to the sect before making any plans. This was also in line with Xiao Chen's intention. He had used Wang Huan's identity in order to rescue his mother. As for after the rescue, only a ghost would return to the Heavenly Qi sect with them. He had made use of Qing Yu's life to suppress the second elder and Fang Yuan. Although the hatred the second elder had for him was much denser than before, at the very least, during the period of the two sects meeting, the second elder and Fang Yuan would not come and find trouble with him. This was enough for him. Xiao Chen walked down the stage with a pale complexion. After executing the Ganjiang sword finger, all the spiritual energy in his body seemed to have been sucked dry. However, after this battle, Xiao Chen had also successfully obtained the qualifications to participate in the two sects meeting. After the battle between Xiao Chen and Qingyu, very quickly, Qingyu's corpse was brought away by two attendants. Subsequently, the next round of the competition started again. Compared to the battle between Xiao Chen and Qingyu, the next round of the competition was nothing worth watching. Not long after, the disciples who would represent the Heavenly Qi sect to participate in the two sects meeting were selected. Among them, Gu Lingyao and Chao He were among them. Following them were the other two exceptional geniuses. Lastly, it was Xiao Chen who had disguised himself as Wang Huan. The five of them would represent the Heavenly Qi sect to participate in the two sects meeting. Along with the ending of the last round, Gu Qi also announced that the selection had ended. Xiao Chen and the other five would represent the Heavenly Qi sect to participate in the two sects meeting. After successfully obtaining a spot, Xiao Chen did not stay in the martial arts arena for long. Very quickly, he returned to his residence. The battle with Qingyu had indeed caused him to consume a lot of his spiritual energy. He needed to recuperate properly. At the same time when Xiao Chen returned to his residence, in the courtyard where Fang Yuan was staying, she looked at her grandfather and said in disbelief, "Qingyu is dead? How is this possible? How is it possible for Wang Huan to kill senior brother Qingyu?" From her grandfather, Fang Yuan had already found out about Qingyu's death. Regarding this, Fang Yuan's first reaction was disbelief. How was this possible? Who was Qingyu? Who was Wang Huan? How was it possible for Wang Huan to kill Qingyu? Facing Fang Yuan's angry shout, the second elder's complexion turned gloomy. What's impossible? The current Wang Huan is no longer the Wang Huan from 2 years ago. During this period of time, especially during the two sects meeting, you better not have any ideas about Wang Huan. Remember this. Just as Xiao Chen had expected, the second elder had indeed warned Fang Yuan personally, telling her not to take the initiative to provoke him during this period of time. When she heard the second elder's words, Fang Yuan felt unreconciled. However, she knew that what her grandfather said was right. She nodded her head helplessly before turning around and entering her room. Chapter 439. Fang Yuan's matter could be considered settled. After this incident and the second elder's warning, Fang Yuan obviously wouldn't dare to provoke him again. As a result, Xiao Chen didn't have to constantly be on guard against Fang Yuan. After a night of teasing and with the help of pills, Xiao Chen's condition returned to its peak. He stretched his back comfortably in the courtyard. At this moment, Gu Lingyao strode into the courtyard in a short green skirt. Xiao Chen frowned when he saw Gu Lingyao. Fang Yuan's matter was settled, but he was helpless against Gu Lingyao. He couldn't touch her easily. Moreover, this girl was extremely smart and cunning. Xiao Chen was under a lot of pressure when he was with her. He had to be fully alert at all times. Don't you know how to knock before entering someone's courtyard? Xiao Chen glared at Gu Lingyao and said. He really didn't want to be entangled with this girl, but this girl seemed to be determined to stick to him. She came to his place almost every day. This made Xiao Chen really helpless. Gu Lingyao didn't care about Xiao Chen's cold scolding. She went to the stone bench in the courtyard and sat down. Then, she poured herself a cup of tea and took a sip. She smiled brightly. My courtyard? Senior brother Wang Huan, did you make a mistake? Not to mention this place, the entire mansion now belongs to the Celestial Equal Sect. Since it belongs to the Celestial Equal Sect, then it belongs to me. Do I need to knock before entering my own courtyard? Xiao Chen rolled his eyes at Gu Lingyao. Although he had only interacted with this girl for a few days, Xiao Chen realized that he was no match for her when it came to talking. Therefore, when he heard Gu Lingyao's twisted logic, Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered to harp on this topic, and asked directly. Alright, why did you come here so early in the morning? Is something the matter? Why? Can't I come to find you if there's nothing? Gu Lingyao smiled when she heard Xiao Chen's words. She was already a little afraid of this girl. Seeing this, Xiao Chen turned around and coldly said before walking towards the room. Since there's nothing, you can play by yourself. I'm going to cultivate. Seeing that Xiao Chen was about to leave, Gu Lingyao hurriedly grabbed Xiao Chen's arm and said, all right. I won't tease you anymore. I haven't seen you for 2 years and you've become like a block of wood. You don't know how to be gentle with a girl at all. Let's go. I'm here because father is looking for you. After a few days, not only had Xiao Chen figured out Gu Lingyao's character, Gu Lingyao had also figured out Xiao Chen's character. In her opinion, this guy was simply a block of wood. He didn't have the slightest intention of being gentle with her. In fact, every time they met, Xiao Chen would deliberately avoid her. This made Gu Lingyao very unhappy. She thought to herself, no matter what, I'm still the daughter of the sect master of the Celestial Equal Sect. Which disciple of the Celestial Equal Sect doesn't wish to be by my side all day long? But you, I took the initiative to look for you and you actually felt annoyed and wanted to avoid me. She said to Xiao Chen with a displeased expression. Hearing that Gu Qi was looking for him, Xiao Chen naturally couldn't refuse. He followed Gu Lingyao out of the small courtyard. When they arrived at Gu Qi's residence, he was already waiting for them. When he saw Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao walking over, Gu Qi smiled faintly. He pointed to the chair beside him and said, have a seat. He indicated for Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao to have a seat before Gu Qi continued. Kid, yesterday you killed Qingyu. I'm afraid the second elder is bearing a grudge against you. Why? Could it be that he still dares to kill me? An elder killing a disciple is a violation of the sect rules. The sect master shouldn't ignore it, right? When he heard Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chen smiled and replied. Haha. Kid, on the surface, he naturally wouldn't dare to do anything to you. But in the dark, as the saying goes, it's easier to dodge a spear in the open than an arrow in the dark. Do you understand this logic? When he heard Xiao Chen's reply, Gu Qi laughed heartily. He felt that Xiao Chen's actions yesterday were somewhat impulsive. However, Gu Qi didn't know that the reason why Xiao Chen did that was because he wouldn't be able to stay in the Heavenly Qi sect for a long time. As long as he could prevent the second elder and Fang Yuan from finding trouble with him, it would be fine. As for the future, if they were able to find him, he would think about it again. When he saw Xiao Chen didn't have the slightest bit of regret for his actions yesterday, Gu Qi shook his head helplessly. He then went straight to the main topic. Since he had asked Gu Lingyao to call Xiao Chen so early in the morning, Gu Qi naturally had something to say. He took out a circular jade stone from his spatial ring. The jade stone was emitting a faint white luster. Gu Qi revealed a smile as he said softly, "This is the ferocious tiger stampede technique imparting jade stone. You have yet to cultivate the ferocious tiger stampede, right? Yesterday you defeated Qing Yu, so you are qualified to cultivate the ferocious tiger stampede. Take it." The imparting jade stone was a special kind of jade stone. Its only use was to record all kinds of martial technique. In the Heavenly River continent, the imparting jade stone was very common. Because using the imparting jade stone to learn martial techniques, it was more convenient. Secondly, every imparting jade stone could only be used once. This way, it could prevent the martial technique from being leaked out. When he heard Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chen was immediately elated. Yesterday, he had personally experienced the might of the ferocious tiger stampede. Originally, he had coveted the ferocious tiger stampede technique. Who would have expected that Gu Qi would take the initiative to impart the ferocious tiger stampede to him? There was a saying, "When you are sleepy, a pillow will be sent to you." It was really true. It was definitely a pleasant surprise. Regarding this, Xiao Chen would naturally not be so foolish to reject it. He was even more impolite as he received the imparting jade stone that recorded the ferocious tiger stampede. Xiao Chen bowed respectfully to Gu Qi. "Disciple thanks sect master." All right. The difficulty of cultivating the ferocious tiger stampede is extremely high. Now there is only half a month left before the two sects meet. During this period of time, you should focus on preparing for the two sects meet. As for the ferocious tiger stampede, wait until the two sects meet ends before you cultivate it. Facing Xiao Chen's bow of gratitude, Gu Qi laughed heartily. At the same time, he reminded Xiao Chen that there was no need to rush cultivating the ferocious tiger stampede. It wouldn't be too late for him to slowly cultivate it after the two sects meet ends. Hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't say anything more. He nodded and replied. Then, he chatted with Gu Qi for a while before Xiao Chen left. After saying goodbye to Gu Qi on the way back, Xiao Chen couldn't help but smile. He didn't expect that he would obtain the ferocious tiger stampede so smoothly. Xiao Chen was eager to go back and see how powerful the ferocious tiger stampede was. As for Gu Qi's reminder, Xiao Chen had long forgotten about it. Just as Xiao Chen was eager to start cultivating the ferocious tiger stampede, in the bamboo courtyard where Gu Qi lived, Gu Lingyao looked at Gu Qi with a puzzled expression and asked, "Father, why did you impart the ferocious tiger stampede to him?" Chapter 440. Father, why did you pass on the stampede of the tiger to him? Gu Lingyao looked at Gu Qi and asked with a puzzled expression. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Gu Qi smiled and said, It's nothing. Father, since you already know that he's not Wang Hu, why did you still do this? Gu Lingyao questioned Gu Qi with a displeased expression. If Xiao Chen was here at this time, he would obviously be shocked to hear Gu Lingyao's words. Xiao Chen would never have thought that Gu Qi already knew that he was not Wang Hu. However, what was strange was that since Gu Qi already knew that Xiao Chen was not Wang Hu, why didn't he expose him? Moreover, he even passed on the stampede of the tiger, Tianfeng Xingzong's only heaven-level upper-grade martial skill, to Xiao Chen. This was really too unbelievable. Even Gu Lingyao couldn't figure out why Gu Qi would do this. He still underestimated a half-step saint expert. Although he was not a true saint expert, a half-step saint expert was definitely not someone that a Tao Emperor expert could compare to. Therefore, when he first saw Xiao Qin, Gu Qi knew that the Wang Huan in front of him was not the real Wang Huan. It was just that they didn't point it out. It was indeed a little whimsical to think that he could deceive a half-step saint with a mere disguise technique. Seeing Gu Lingyao's displeased expression, Gu Qi revealed a rather profound smile and said, "When I first saw him, I knew that he wasn't Wang Hu. From the first time I saw him, I knew he wasn't Wang Hu. The reason why I didn't point it out was because I needed his help. Moreover, if I'm not wrong, he shouldn't be someone from the Tianhe continent." A year ago, many outsiders suddenly appeared in the Tianfeng prefecture. With such a large number of outsiders appearing at the same time, it's obvious that a saint had opened up the transmission array. This matter also attracted the attention of the Tianfeng sacred sect. The reason why Gu Qi didn't point out Xiao Chen's identity was naturally because Xiao Chen was still useful to Gu Qi. At the same time, although he couldn't confirm Xiao Chen's true identity, Gu Qi guessed that Xiao Chen was not from the Tianhe continent. A year ago, a total of 50,000 people from the Tiantian continent came to the Tianhe continent at the same time. This naturally attracted the attention of the various saint sects in the Tianhe continent. Only a remote small country like the Moonless Empire didn't pay attention to it. Therefore, Gu Qi suspected that Xiao Chen was one of those outsiders from the beginning. Hearing Gu Qi's words, Gu Lingyao didn't answer. However, only Gu Qi and Gu Lingyao knew about Xiao Chen's identity. The others still thought that Xiao Chen was Wang Huan. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Qi slowly stood up and looked at Gu Lingyao with a smile. "Well, father knows what you're thinking. These days you've been circling around this boy all day. You say you're curious, but do you know that when a woman is curious about a man, it's the beginning of her love for him? Back then, your mother fell in love with me because of her curiosity." "Ha ha!" Gu Qi laughed loudly. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao's pretty face turned red. She shyly shouted, "Father, you're so annoying." With that, Gu Lingyao ran out of the courtyard like a gust of wind. Looking at Gu Lingyao's disappearing figure, the smile on Gu Qi's face slowly disappeared. His eyes flashed with a deep light as he whispered softly, "The saint sect's selection is about to begin. Also, it's time for my Tianqi sect to clean up. Some things are too self-righteous. Do you think I don't know? I don't care about the fight for power, but you've really gone too far." At this moment, Gu Qi seemed to have changed into a different person. The pressure of a saint expert slowly spread out. Not knowing that Gu Qi had already discovered his identity, Xiao Chen hastily used the technique imparting jade when he returned to his residence. A large amount of information quickly entered Xiao Chen's mind. After using a few hours, Xiao Chen finally finished absorbing the ferocious tiger stampede cultivation technique. His eyes flashed with a trace of pleasant surprise. Worthy of being a high-grade heaven realm martial technique. Seems like Qing Yu's ferocious tiger stampede is only a dabbler. Otherwise, the might of the ferocious tiger stampede wouldn't be so weak. After knowing the cultivation technique of the ferocious tiger stampede, Xiao Chen was also amazed by this high-grade heaven realm martial technique. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen started to cultivate it. That day, the ferocious tiger stampede that Qing Yu displayed was only a dabbler's version. To put it bluntly, he didn't even display half of the ferocious tiger stampede's strength. Otherwise, if Xiao Chen wanted to defeat him, it wouldn't be that easy. He was completely immersed in cultivating the ferocious tiger stampede. As a movement technique, Xiao Chen placed a lot of importance on the ferocious tiger stampede. After all, movement techniques could be considered as Xiao Chen's weakness. If he was able to cultivate the ferocious tiger stampede successfully, it would definitely allow his fighting strength to increase by a lot. While he was busy cultivating, the days passed by. During this period, Gu Lingyao would still come every day, but it was something that couldn't be helped. In a blink of an eye, half a month had passed. During this half a month, Xiao Chen also took some time to meet with Zhang Qi and the others. They had already successfully infiltrated the Heavenly Wolf Empire's imperial capital. Currently, they were scattered all over the imperial capital, waiting for Xiao Chen's instructions. He told them not to act rashly as he had yet to come into contact with the Blood Wolf King. There were still a lot of things that he couldn't confirm. Everything that needed to be prepared had already been prepared. Next, he could only wait for the two sects' grand meeting to begin and then act according to the circumstances. However, in this half a month, Xiao Chen's strength had undergone earth-shattering changes. First, it was his cultivation. Xiao Chen had successfully broken through from the beginner Dao querying realm to the lesser Dao querying realm. Next was the cultivation of the ferocious tiger stampede. In just half a month, Xiao Chen had successfully cultivated the ferocious tiger stampede to the beginner realm. Although it was only the beginner realm, this speed was already ridiculously fast. One had to know that even Gu Lingyao took a month to cultivate the ferocious tiger stampede to the beginner realm. The breakthrough in both cultivation and martial technique made Xiao Chen overjoyed. It was also under such joy that the day of the two sects' grand meeting finally arrived. Early in the morning, Gu Lingyao strode into Xiao Chen's courtyard as usual without knocking on the door. "Senior brother Wang Huan, let's go. Today is the day of the two sects' grand meeting. We have to set off too." Although Gu Lingyao knew that Xiao Chen wasn't Wang Huan, she didn't point it out until now. However, because of Gu Qi's words previously, Gu Lingyao couldn't help but blush whenever she thought of Gu Qi's words in the process of interacting with Xiao Chen. She couldn't help but curse in her heart. Who would fall in love with this piece of wood? I'm just curious about his identity. Chapter 441. They followed Gu Lingyao all the way to the main hall of the front yard. When Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao arrived, Gu Qi, the second elder, the third elder, and the other three participating disciples had already arrived. Seeing Xiao Chen walk in, the second elder's face immediately darkened. However, he only snorted softly and did not say anything. Gu Qi said calmly after seeing that everyone had arrived. After all, the two-sect grand meeting is related to the division of resources between the Tianqi sect and the Qingyang sect. It is also related to the reputation of the sect. Today, I hope that you can show your abilities and avenge the Tianqi sect. Hearing Gu Qi's words, everyone nodded respectfully in response. Without saying anything, everyone left the mansion directly after everyone had arrived. They got into the carriage prepared by the imperial family and drove all the way to the imperial palace. Xiao Chen and the other four participating disciples rode in the same carriage. The space in the carriage was very large. Even 50 people would not be crowded, let alone 5 people. Sitting in the carriage, Gu Lingyao said to Xiao Chen beside him, "Senior brother Wang Huan, we can't lose again this time. Our Tianqi sect has already lost to the Qingyang sect 3 times in a row. Not only have we lost a lot of cultivation resources, but we've also embarrassed our Tianqi sect." As if they were chatting, Gu Lingyao told Xiao Chen about the previous two-sect grand meeting. After losing 3 consecutive times, the Tianqi sect and the Qingyang sect, which were originally neck and neck, began to think that the Qingyang sect was stronger than the Tianqi sect because of the Tianqi sect's consecutive losses. It couldn't be helped. The two-sect grand meeting was originally a stage for the Tianqi sect and the Qingyang sect to show their strength to the world. On this stage, the Tianqi sect had already lost 3 consecutive times. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chen replied calmly, "I can only say that I will do my best. As for the outcome, who can guarantee?" Xiao Chen did not care that the Tianqi sect had lost several times in a row. After all, his goal was to rescue his mother by Ryue. The outcome was not important to Xiao Chen. However, Gu Lingyao did not think so. He already knew that Xiao Chen was not the real Wang Huan. In this case, Gu Qi naturally had an ulterior motive for keeping him. Now that the two-sect grand meeting had begun, in Gu Lingyao's opinion, he had to use Xiao Chen to win this sect grand meeting. Although he had not fought with Xiao Chen's intuition told him that he was no match for Xiao Chen. Among his peers, Xiao Chen gave Gu Lingyao the feeling that he was the most dangerous person. Gu Lingyao could not see through Xiao Chen at all. It was as if Xiao Chen was a black hole and he had no idea how deep he was. Gu Lingyao naturally would not agree if he could not use such a powerful person to win this two-sect grand meeting. Therefore, when he saw Xiao Chen's indifferent face, Gu Lingyao was secretly unhappy. However, he soon revealed a mischievous smile and whispered into Xiao Chen's ear. "Senior brother Wang Huan, you must win this time. If you lose, I will tell my father that you insulted me. I think you don't want to be targeted by my father, right?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. Then, he looked at Gu Lingyao unhappily. Facing Xiao Chen's gaze, Gu Lingyao looked back at him fearlessly. Gu Lingyao knew Xiao Chen's secret. Therefore, she also knew that Xiao Chen did not want to be targeted by Gu Qi. Therefore, she said this. As if she had grasped Xiao Chen's weakness and knew that Xiao Chen could not refuse, Gu Lingyao revealed a victorious smile when their eyes met. Xiao Chen felt helpless. He really could not refuse. If Gu Lingyao really told Gu Qi that he had insulted her, Gu Qi would definitely kill him. Regardless of the final outcome, it would definitely be a huge hindrance to his plan. Xiao Chen did not expect this little girl to be so difficult to deal with. He had no choice but to say helplessly, "All right, I'll win, okay?" "That's right. If you win, I can give you a small reward. However, you have to be careful. There is a guy in the Qingyang sect that even I am no match for. You can't be careless." Seeing that Xiao Chen agreed, the smile on Gu Lingyao's face became even brighter. Seeing Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao acting so intimately, Chao He and the other two had ugly expressions. After all, in the Tianqi sect, Gu Lingyao was the goddess in the hearts of all the disciples. Even Chao He admired Gu Lingyao. Seeing that Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao were so intimate, she naturally felt jealous. Xiao Chen felt the unfriendly gazes of Chao He and the other two, but he did not care. At this moment, Xiao Chen was constantly cursing Gu Lingyao in his heart. This little girl had really planned for his death. Not only did she threaten him, but she also gave him no room to refuse. Of course, what Xiao Chen did not know was that he had already been exposed. It was precisely because of this that Gu Lingyao was able to grasp Xiao Chen's weakness so accurately. After all, what a person who deliberately hid his identity was most afraid of was naturally being exposed. The carriage traveled all the way to the imperial palace. For this grand meeting of the two sects, the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire had directly transformed the main square of the imperial palace into a magnificent martial arts arena. In the middle of the square, there was an arena that was 1,000 meters in length and width. Tables and chairs were placed all around the arena. At the same time, a lofty dragon platform was built in front of the arena. In the middle of the platform were 3 seats. Obviously, these 3 seats were for the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Tianqi sect master, and the Qingyang sect master. As for the more than 10 seats on both sides, they were for the elders of the two sects and the 4 great princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. When Xiao Chen and the others arrived at the main square of the imperial palace, from the other side, a pair of carriages slowly drove over. Needless to say, the people of the Qingyang sect had also arrived. Both parties alighted from the carriages one after another. As soon as they met, the Qingyang sect master took the initiative to greet Gu Qi with a smile. "Haha, brother Gu Qi, you're really early." Sect Master Hua is not slow either. Upon hearing the Qingyang sect master's words, Gu Qi also responded with a smile. While the 2 half-saints were exchanging pleasantries, Xiao Chen was also secretly observing from the side. There was nothing special about the appearance of the master of the Qingyang sect. He was very ordinary. If you met him on the street, you would only think that he was an ordinary person. No one would have thought that he was actually a half-saint. Just as Xiao Chen was secretly sizing up the Qingyang sect master, Gu Lingyao gently pulled Xiao Chen's sleeve. Then, Xiao Chen turned his gaze to the participating disciples of the Qingyang sect. Just like the Tianqi sect, there were also 5 people. However, after looking at the 5 people, Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. The 5 participating disciples of the Qingyang sect were all king of talents. Chapter 442. Xiao Chen's gaze swept across the 5 participating disciples of the Qingyang sect. He finally knew why the Tianqi sect had lost to the Qingyang sect for 3 consecutive sects' grand meetings. It couldn't be helped. The Qingyang sect's strength seemed to be stronger than the Tianqi sect's at first glance. Both of them had 5 participating disciples, but the Tianqi sect only had 3 kings of pride, including Xiao Chen himself. On the other hand, the Qingyang sect's 5 participating disciples were all kings of pride. The disciples from both sides sized each other up. At this moment, one of the participating disciples from the Qingyang sect slowly walked up to Gu Lingyao and called out to Gu Lingyao with a smile. Lingyao. His name was Hua Zhe, and he was the young sect master of the Qingyang sect. His father was the sect master of the Qingyang sect. Gu Lingyao smiled back at Hua Zhe's smile, but it seemed forced no matter how one looked at it. Senior brother Hua Zhe. She forced a smile at Hua Zhe. Because of their identities and their age difference, Hua Zhe and Gu Lingyao had known each other since they were young. Furthermore, Hua Zhe had always been pursuing Gu Lingyao. Of course, the reason why Hua Zhe pursued Gu Lingyao was because of true love or some other reason. However, it was more likely because of Gu Lingyao's identity. After all, Gu Lingyao was the eldest daughter of the Celestial Equal Sect. If he could get his hands on her, then the Celestial Equal Sect would belong to him. In the future, it would not be impossible for the Qingyang sect to swallow up the Celestial Equal Sect and become the only large sect in Danyang County. On the carriage, Gu Lingyao had told Xiao Chen that there was one person among the participating disciples from the Qingyang sect that even she was no match for. That person was Hua Zhe. As the young sect master of the Qingyang sect, Hua Zhe did not embarrass his father. He had shown amazing talent and strength since he was young. Hua Zhe had always been recognized as the #1 person among the younger generation in Danyang County. Even Gu Lingyao could only be ranked second. Xiao Chen chatted with Gu Lingyao with a smile. He was not interested in what they were talking about. After sizing up the 5 participating disciples from the Qingyang sect, Xiao Chen was about to go to the side and wait. However, he was held back by Gu Lingyao, which made him feel helpless. Hua Zhe also noticed the young man beside Gu Lingyao. After chatting for a while, Hua Zhe suddenly looked at Xiao Chen. From the beginning, Hua Zhe had noticed that Gu Lingyao had been holding on to Xiao Chen's sleeve, not letting him leave. This action made Hua Zhe a little unhappy, but he did not show it. Compared to Fang Yuan, Hua Zhe was obviously much more shrewd. Although he was unhappy with Xiao Chen, he still said with a smile on his face, "You are also a participating disciple from the Tianqi sect, right? Let's get to know each other. My name is Hua Zhe," he said with a smile. However, just as Hua Zhe's voice fell, a spiritual energy sound transmission sounded in Xiao Chen's mind. "Let me give you a piece of advice. Stay away from Gu Lingyao." Needless to say, Hua Zhe was the one who had spoken to Xiao Chen through telepathy. On the surface, he appeared to be polite and courteous, but on the inside, he was actually quite despicable. After hearing Hua Zhe's telepathy, Xiao Chen smiled and ignored it. Although he had no intention of provoking Hua Zhe, Xiao Chen was not afraid of him. Although Xiao Chen felt a trace of danger from Hua Zhe, it was just that. Seeing that Xiao Chen did not change his expression because of his warning, a murderous intent flashed in Hua Zhe's eyes. He clearly bore a grudge against Xiao Chen. Just as Hua Zhe was about to say something, A middle-aged man in a dragon robe strode over from the palace. Needless to say, this person was the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. He quickly walked in front of Gu Qi and Shao Chen. Facing Gu Qi and Shao Chen, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was extremely enthusiastic. After some small talk, the Emperor introduced the people behind him to Gu Qi and Shao Chen. The first was naturally the four great princes. When the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire said the three words, Blood Wolf King, Shao Chen, who had been indifferent, suddenly looked in the direction of the Blood Wolf King. He saw a man in a blood-red robe with a feminine appearance. In particular, his triangular eyes gave people a chilling feeling. This person was the Blood Wolf King of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the person with real power in the entire Heavenly Wolf Empire. At the same time, he was also the person who coveted Shao Chen's mother. Shao Chen, who had been extremely calm since the beginning, uncontrollably emitted a murderous intent from his body at this moment. The intensity of this murderous intent caused Gu Lingyao and Hua Zhe to be slightly taken aback. Gu Lingyao did not care about anything else as he directly grabbed Shao Chen's hand and squeezed it forcefully. Only then did Shao Chen regain his senses. Finally seeing the Blood Wolf King, Shao Chen could not control the murderous intent in his heart. Fortunately, Gu Lingyao was beside him and Shao Chen quickly regained his senses. "What's wrong with you?" After interacting with Shao Chen for half a month, this was the first time that Gu Lingyao had seen Shao Chen lose his composure. Therefore, he asked in confusion. In response to Gu Lingyao's question, Shao Chen shook his head and said, "Nothing." These things obviously could not be told to Gu Lingyao. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao did not continue to ask. Instead, it was Hua Zhe who looked at Shao Chen thoughtfully. Judging from the murderous intent that Shao Chen unintentionally emitted, Hua Zhe knew that this person could not be underestimated. This was because even he, Hua Zhe, was unable to emit such an intense murderous intent. Murderous intent was not something that appeared out of thin air. Only someone whose hands were stained with blood could possess such a terrifying murderous intent. Although Hua Zhe had killed many people, he asked himself honestly. In terms of murderous intent, he, Hua Zhe, was far inferior to Shao Chen. Therefore, there was only one explanation. The number of people that Shao Chen had killed was much more than Hua Zhe. Previously, Hua Zhe did not pay much attention to Shao Chen, but now, he was somewhat interested in him. How could a person with such murderous intent be an ordinary person? With a smile on his face, Hua Zhe said faintly, "Lingyao, I will go back first. Also, this friend, I hope to have a battle with you in the arena." With a gentle smile on his face, Hua Zhe bid farewell to Shao Chen and turned to leave. Hua Zhe was like a poisonous snake. He would never show his emotions on his face. Even if he wanted to kill you, he would not reveal it in advance. This was an extremely sinister person. However, at this moment, Shao Chen did not care about him at all. This was because at this moment, Shao Chen's entire mind was locked onto the Blood Wolf King. His gaze was fixed on the Blood Wolf King. It was him. He was the one who captured his mother. Shao Chen could not wait to go up and take the Blood Wolf King's life. However, Shao Chen knew that he could not be impulsive. Otherwise, he would only harm himself and his mother. After waiting for so long, he finally saw the Blood Wolf King today. While Shao Chen was secretly observing, the Blood Wolf King accompanied the Emperor, Gu Qi, and the others all the way to the high platform. Everyone took their seat. At the same time, the civil and military officials of the Heavenly Wolf Empire also followed the prearranged seating arrangement and sat on the tables and chairs around the arena. Chapter 443. After everyone took their seats, this year's two-sect grand meeting officially began. First, the two sects took out their respective spirit stone veins as the wager for this two-sect grand meeting. There were a total of 48 known spirit stone veins in the entire Danyang region. 10 of them were in the hands of the two sects, while the other 38 were in the hands of the three empires. The purpose of the two sects' grand meeting was for the two sects to divide the 10 spirit stone veins. The winner could choose first, and could even choose one more vein. As for the loser, naturally, they could only pick what others left behind, and the number would be one less vein. The reserves of each spirit stone vein were different. Some spirit stone veins had larger reserves and were easier to extract. Such spirit stone veins were naturally better. It was a tradition of the two sects to take out spirit stone veins as the wager for the two-sect grand meeting. With the announcement of the two-sect masters, the two-sect grand meeting officially began. Each sect had 5 participating disciples. There were a total of 5 battles, and the winner would win 3 out of 5. The rules were very simple. The arena had already been set up for this two-sect grand meeting. At this moment, Hua Zhe looked at one of the disciples from the Qingyang sect's camp and said indifferently, "You go first." Hearing Hua Zhe's words, the disciple nodded slightly. Then, he leaped onto the fighting ring. The Qingyang sect had already sent out their disciple for the first battle. Seeing this, Gu Lingyao looked at Xiao Qun and the other 3 from the Tianqi sect and said softly, "Who's going for the first battle?" "Let me go," the disciple sitting on the far right said softly when he heard Gu Lingyao's words. The Qingyang sect had only sent out their weakest disciple for the first battle, so the Tianqi sect was naturally the same. However, Xiao Qun shook his head helplessly when he saw the disciple step onto the arena. The disciple from the Qingyang sect had already reached the level of a king of pride. However, the disciple from the Tianqi sect was only an exceptional sky pride. It was almost impossible for an exceptional sky pride to defeat a king of prides, so Xiao Qun wasn't optimistic about this battle. However, there was nothing they could do about it. The 5 participating disciples of the Qingyang sect were all kings of pride. As for the Tianqi sect, only Gu Lingyao, Chao He, and Xiao Qun were kings of pride. The other 2 were all peerless geniuses. There was a huge difference in their overall strength. It could be said that their chances of winning were slim. Just as the 2 of them stepped onto the arena, a talisman array soared into the sky and immediately enveloped the entire arena. With the retaliation of the talisman array, the aftermath of the battle between the 2 sides wouldn't affect the people present. At the same time, through the talisman array, it wouldn't affect the people watching the battle on the arena. The battle began as soon as the array was activated. The disciple from the Qingyang sect sneered as he looked at the participating disciple from the Tianqi sect. "There's still a chance for you to surrender now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Cut the crap. Let's fight." Hearing the words, the Tianqi sect disciple replied coldly. How was it possible for him to surrender without a fight? Facing the rejection from the Tianqi sect disciple, the Qingyang sect disciple seemed to have already expected it. He smiled coldly and no longer spoke. He took a step forward and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Fast, very fast. Following the disciple's action, Xiao Qun immediately knew that the Tianqi sect had already lost the battle. It was impossible for them to win. The disparity between an exceptional sky pride and a king of prides wasn't a joke. The strength of the Qingyang sect disciple on the arena was almost on par with Qing Yu. Before the battle had even started, the outcome was already known. Sure enough, in less than 100 moves, the Tianqi sect disciple was defeated. The first battle was won by the Qingyang sect. Furthermore, it was a complete suppression. Following the end of the first battle, the Qingyang sect master looked at Gu Qi and smiled. "Brother Gu, seems like the Tianqi sect hasn't made any progress in these years." After winning 3 consecutive rounds of the two-sect gathering, the Qingyang sect's might was getting more and more unstoppable. Furthermore, they had won the first battle completely. The Qingyang sect master's mood was extremely good. Facing the Qingyang sect master's ridicule, Gu Qi didn't get angry. He smiled faintly. "Brother Hua, don't be anxious. This is only the first battle. There are still 4 more battles. In terms of the number of king of prides, The Tianqi sect was obviously inferior to the Qingyang sect. Therefore, it was reasonable for them to lose the first battle. Upon hearing Gu Qi's words, the Qingyang sect master smiled. Clearly, he was in a good mood. He had already won against the Celestial Equal sect 3 times in a row. From the looks of it, the Qingyang sect would become more and more powerful. By then, it would not be impossible for them to completely crush the Celestial Equal sect. Following the defeat of the first battle, the second battle soon began. The Qingyang sect still sent out a king of prides, while the Tianqi sect sent out another peerless genius. It was still a palm strike that had no chance of winning. In the second battle, the Qingyang sect's disciple was stronger than the previous person. As a result, it was even more impossible for them to win. The gathering of the two sects had just begun. Everyone thought that it would be a fierce battle. Who would have thought that the Tianqi sect would be completely crushed in 2 consecutive battles? It ended a little faster than the first battle. In less than 50 moves, the Tianqi sect's disciple was defeated. Less than 15 minutes had passed since the 2 battles ended. If this continued, the gathering of the 2 sects would probably end in less than 2 hours. It was a completely one-sided situation. Everyone looked in the direction where Shao Chun and the others were sitting and thought to themselves, "Is the strength of the Tianqi sect so weak?" The Tianqi sect, which has always been known as one of the 2 great sects with the Qingyang sect, has been completely crushed by the Qingyang sect. They all felt that the Tianqi sect was too weak. There was nothing they could do about it. The 2 consecutive battles had ended in the blink of an eye. It could be said that the Tianqi sect's disciple was completely powerless to fight back. They had already won 2 battles in a row. As a result, they only needed to win 1 more battle to end the gathering of the 2 sections. However, those who knew the inside story knew that the last 3 battles were the most crucial. Since the number of King of Prides in the Tianqi sect was not as many as the Qingyang sect, the Tianqi sect had already given up on the first 2 battles. After all, it was impossible for a peerless genius to fight a King of Prides. It was better to give up and bet on Shao Chun and the other 2. As long as Shao Chun and the other 2 could win, they would still win the gathering of the 2 sections. In the Qingyang sect's camp, Hua Zhe still had a faint smile on his face. He looked at the disciple on his right and said, "Go on. Win this battle and the gathering of the 2 sects will end." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.